You're in the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
With Gene and Chris, welcome back to the Paracast, where we have an exciting show for you. I think I'm starting to sound like Tim Cook at Apple. You know, we got some great stuff for you, so stay with us for the next 2 or 3 hours, and you'll have fun. Now, in last week's episode, we had Micah Hanks and Scotty Roberts. Of course, they have that Paradigm Symposium coming in October in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. But they mentioned, of course, the ancient astronauts guy, Eric von Daniken, or as it is properly pronounced, Eric von Daniken. That's what Bob Zanotti told us. And Bob is always right, so we'll go with that. Now, it was mentioned that he had been arrested for fraud and served a jail sentence. This is, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, that kind of thing. And I looked it up because I wanted to see just how severe this conviction was. And this is the Wikipedia entry. We know that Wikipedia is not always accurate, but we'll go with it. So, von Daniken was arrested in November 1968 for fraud after falsifying hotel records and credit references in order to take out loans for $130,000 over a period of 12 years. Now, 2 years later, he was convicted, sentenced to over 3 years in prison, but only served a year. Okay, fine. Now, let's think about this, for example. He was fined 3,000 francs for this offense. Now, I don't know about the translation rate back in 1968 dollars, but 3,000 francs in 1968 was worth, what, about 150 or something?
Sounds like a slap on the wrist to me.
It sure was, $130,000. Now, let us now put this in perspective. The average family in the U.S. makes, what, $55,000 a year. So in 2013 dollars, if it was $130,000, it would take a family over 2 years to earn it. Except, of course, there has been inflation. So when we factor in inflation here, $130,000 in 1968 dollars. What is that in 2013, guys? It's almost $900,000.
Wow.
Okay, $900,000. Now, that's pretty wacky. In fact, one of the dogs in the neighborhood just barked at that figure. So I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty serious offense. And he has to be really lucky, except, I guess, white-collar crimes were not taken near as seriously back in the 60s. So he was very lucky. I think if he stole $900,000 today, and we assume, he's an elderly man now, but if he was 20, 30 years old and stole that amount of money, he wouldn't just get a year in prison.
Yeah, well, how about Sean David Morton claiming to be psychic and doing psychic stock predictions and losing clients' money to the tune of $6 million? I mean, and he still gets invited to conferences. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, but it's even more interesting over the fact that he was sued. He wasn't arrested and charged with a crime. To me, if you do that, isn't it illegal?
Yeah.
So why is he not in prison? I mean, we put someone in jail if they smoke a joint in some parts of the United States. Yeah. They could spend 5 years in jail for smoking a joint. Okay? But a guy here who causes people to lose millions of dollars is going scot-free. I see a disconnect.
No. Either that or he saved up a bunch of that money and it's now being earned by his lawyer.
Well, there is that. But I'm not going to say anything about von Daniken except that his theory is nothing new. He was the one with the best-selling book. But when he came out with Chariots of the Gods, we already had, Brinsley Laporte Trench, British writer. We had Desmond Leslie, who wrote about ancient astronauts in the early 50s. His book was the introduction of Flying Saucers Have Landed, which, of course, was the George Adamski book. So everybody was concerned about George Adamski meeting the Venusian in the desert or whatever, but maybe they weren't so concerned about the guy who wrote about the ancient astronauts. Then, of course, we had people like Yona Fortner, who nobody ever heard of. Chris, ever hear of Yona Fortner?
Not until I met you and you clued me in, no.
Yona Fortner was writing about that in the 50s for Jim Moseley's Saucer News. Okay? Yona was a brilliant scholar, but a pretty wacky guy. A really wacky guy, and sometimes you wondered if he was putting you on. But he was fluent in a number of languages, very smart on his feet, and he was talking about the God of the Old Testament being E.T. That's a basic theory. So before von Däniken, there were a number of people who were presenting theories of this sort. But like always happens, the one with the best-selling book is the one who's credited with the theory. You don't think about the people who had gone before.
Yeah. Hopefully my new book will be the go-to book on the subject I'm writing about, and it will bring the whole question of who's perpetrating cattle mutilations back into focus and sort of burn off some of the pop culture dross that's sort of going up around the subject.
Well, I think the unfortunate thing here is we have certain writers whom we could name, certain lecturers, who want us to believe that E.T. is coming down here and carving up cattle. And the question I'd ask is why? Why would they do that? You think after you take 3 or 4 DNA samples, what's the rest all about?
Right, and why not sample, get your sampling materials out of a rendering plant or a slaughterhouse or something. It's obviously it's the location that's being sampled as well as the animal. So that's something that the flying saucer theory just doesn't quite embrace that line of thinking. Doesn't really factor it in.
Well, of course, you're making me real curious now. Why would they sample the location? Give us a hint here, because we're going to be lining up to buy this book.
Gene.
This book is going to be the definitive work on cattle mutilations. So why is the location significant?
Well, that's just it. Way back in '79, David Perkins noticed that areas of high incidence tended to be downwind and downstream of nuclear test sites, uranium mines, nuclear power plants where we enrich and weaponize uranium. So we may be dealing in some part with an environmental monitoring process that's actually looking at the environment and using soft tissue organs of livestock, which hold the most recent vestiges of the environment in their cells, sampling those organs.
All right, well, we're going to look forward to that book. We're going to line up. We're going to maybe see if we can get you doing some book signings or something. This sounds like it's going to be a fascinating title. This is the kind of book that should be the bestseller that A Chariots of the Gods was. Because we have something now that's up front and personal, a real event that's happening now, not 2,000 years ago, and we'd like to know more about it. But what we'd like to know more about, of course, is what is happening to the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON. MUFON has had some musical chairs in terms of international directors. They've had James Carrion, who left under a cloud. And we had him on the show. He explained what happened. We had Clifford Clift. We had David McDonald, who never came on the show. And we have Jan, is that Harzan? Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. We have Jan Harzan, who's just taken the role of international director of MUFON, and he is going to be on the show today. Chris, tell us a bit more.
Well, Jan has been the longtime state director and also the head of Orange County MUFON. I met him, it's got to have been 17, 18 years ago. A really sweet guy, super knowledgeable, crack businessman. He worked for IBM as a senior project manager for 30-plus years. Pretty much knows everybody in the field, I think, all the movers and shakers, and is very shrewd and I think a perfect choice for MUFON. I'm really looking forward to see what Jan does with the organization, and we've got a lot of questions for him today on the Paracast.
And we're definitely not going to hold back. Real hard questions of Jan Harzan, the new international director of MUFON, joining Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's number 2, a2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code GENE when you check out.
Jim Newcomer from Midas Resources, September 12th, 2013. Gold opened this morning at $13.40.40. A 1-ounce gold coin can be purchased for $13.88.85, $6.94.43 for a half ounce, or $3.47.21 for a quarter ounce. That's $13.88.85, $6.94.43, and $3.47.21.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? Wait a sec. Gold and silver is going up while Congress is trying to settle on the next debt increase. And there's no end to this madness. That old 401k and IRA can be converted into physical gold without tax consequences. I explained this in my book, 10 Reasons to Buy Gold. Don't let time slip away. Call for your free copy today, 800-686-2237. Get away from that Washington spin and get honest answers about gold. 800-686-2237. The book is free, 800-686-2237.
For over 5 years, you've been hearing about the Berkey Guy, so you may know a few things about him. For example, you are well aware of the superior quality and effectiveness of Berkey water filters and accessories. But did you know the Berkeys have had independent lab tests done to prove just how effective they are? It's true, and he can email you the test results. Just visit goberkey.com. You may also know that the Berkey Guy has helped tens of thousands of people get better prepared. Now here's something you may not know. GoBerkey.com has amazing specials and deals all the time on a wide variety of survival and preparedness products. Most ready to ship same day. Visit the Berkey Guy at GoBerkey.com and be sure to click the red Products on Sale Now button. You can always call toll-free 877-886-3653. Again, that's 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com, home of the Berkey Guy.
Summertime is sale time at Herbal Healer Academy. Current customers know this is the time to save big and stock up at herbalhealer.com. New customers, welcome to the web's best place to save on vitamins, minerals, and more. Right now, Herbal Healer's summer specials include our 500 parts per million colloidal silver, all sizes on sale. CoQ10 with Hawthorne, Colon Enhancer, Sea Cucumber, Super Fem and Super Male Plex, plus glucosamine chondroitin, our best-selling liquid CalMag vitamin B, and our colloidal minerals, all on sale for summer at herbalhealer.com. And Herbal Healer also offers certificate correspondence courses in natural medicine. Enjoy same-day shipping and free online newsletter. Log on to our nation's leader in supplying quality natural medicine and education since 1988. Herbal Healer Academy at herbalhealer.com. We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
We're joined by Jan Harzan, the new director of the Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON. But before we talk about what the organization has done and is doing, let's learn about Jan. So, Jan, welcome to the Paracast.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
I think our listeners will want to know about your background, how you got started in this. What made you interested in the subject of UFOs?
Well, actually, we started when I was a young kid. Growing up, my father used to subscribe to True and Argosy, which were men's magazines of the day.
Yes. I sort of remember that. That ages me.
It was back in the late 50s, early 60s. And there were articles in there by Major Keyhole from Nightcap and different folks talking about UFOs. And, of course, the newspapers always had sighting reports in them in those days. I mean, that was kind of front-page news if there was something significant that happened, particularly the swamp gas in 1965, 66, in that era. it always hit the front page of the newspaper. So my brother and I were both very interested in the subject, and we were kind of playing around with it, and we came to the conclusion that these craft were not only extraterrestrial, but they were using some kind of electromagnetic or nuclear energy to give them the ability to defy gravity. So that was where my first beginnings of getting interested in the subject started, quite at a young age, actually.
Okay. Now, did you ever see anything strange?
Actually, we did, because my brother and I were in the process of trying to actually build one of these craft, and we decided that it was probably something for using pulsed electromagnetic energy of some sort. And so we had designed, on paper at least, a 30-foot craft with 3 pulsed electromagnetic engines. Now, mind you, we were pretty young at the time. We were like 9 and 10 years old. But we decided we're going to build this. And so my mother took us to the store one day, and we were waiting for her to check out. We noticed at the newsstand there was a little small magazine called The Flying Saucer Review. And we purchased a copy of it, had our mother purchase a copy of it, and took it home, and we started reading it. And in the magazine, it basically said that UFOs are seen around military installations, nuclear power plants, and places where anti-gravity research is being done. So we just kind of looked at each other, and we said, wow, we're doing anti-gravity research. Maybe one will come visit us. Well, it wasn't but a month later, my brother came into my room early one Saturday morning around 6:30, and woke me up and said, there's someone trying to break into my room. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, someone's outside and kind of rumbling around trying to take out the screen. And I said, well, did you look out and see who it was? He said, no, I didn't do that, And so we went back, we looked, there was nothing there. And I said, well, why don't we go out in the backyard and, let the dog out, and we'll go back and see who's back there. So at this time of the year, it was right before the time change, about April of 65. And it was very light outside. The sun had already come up. It was bright. It's almost day. It was daylight. We were walking down the hallway, and as we went down the hallway in our home, I was talking to him, and he said, "Look." And I turned around to see where, because he was walking forward, I was looking backwards towards him, and he was pointing at our living room drapes, which were white drapes, and the sun was coming in to the drapes, so they were all lit up, and I didn't see anything. So I said, well, what did you see, Jeff? And he said, there was somebody standing against the window. And I told you to look. They floated backwards. And that was the words he used. They floated backwards. I thought, wow, that's kind of strange. I thought he was just pulling my leg. So I said, fine, let's go out in the backyard. We'll go see what's happening. So we went into the garage, and as we did, our kitchen was right there. I noticed the clock said 6:30 a.m. on it. And we went into the garage and then out the back door and to the end of the house so we could look back at his bedroom window. And there was nothing there. So I'm thinking, oh, yeah, right, sure, there's nothing here, Jeff. Well, you just pulling my leg. We turned around to go back into the house, and there, 30 feet from us, hovering 10 feet off the ground, was a landing craft making a humming noise, much like a high-voltage transformer in the nighttime. If you ever walked down the street and heard one of those things humming, it sounded exactly like that. And quite frankly, we were stunned. So, to continue on, I said to him, well, my first thought was, my first thought was, oh my gosh, these things are real. My second thought that went through my head was, oh my gosh, this thing looks man-made. Because if you looked at it, it was a tank. I always tell people, if you took a brick and you blew it up to, 4 feet wide by 3 feet tall by 8 to 10 feet long, and then completely smoothed all the edges, and then painted it a bright orange, and then it had blue corrugated landing gear, 4 of them, and then black suction cups on the bottom of the landing gear, and then it had brown crossbars on the legs, connecting the legs, two on each side, and in the middle of the crossbars there was a bolt, and it was the bolt that made me think this thing's man-made, because I was thinking, why would it have a bolt on it? But as I looked at the craft, it was perfectly smooth, almost like a ceramic. But I don't believe we had ceramics back in those days. I mean, back in those days, I think it was rivets and nuts that put things together, sheet metal together. So there was not a seam in this whole craft. I mean, it was completely seamless. So the next thought that went through my head was, how do these guys get in and out of this thing? Because there's no doors, no windows. It was just a tank hovering, and it was completely frozen in the sky. So I said to him, I'm going to go in and get a camera. I'll be right back. And I ran into the garage, turned to go into the house, and the door was locked. And I started pounding on the doors, hoping that one of my older brother would come and open it up. And about 5 minutes later, he did. I went in and got a camera, came back out, and my brother was standing up on top of a swing set we had looking off to the west, but the craft was gone. And I said, what happened? And he said, well, it just hovered there for a minute, and it slowly started to drift away, and then just shot over the horizon. So that was our experience as young kids, and that has pretty much shaped who I've been for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's up close and personal. About what was the distance between you and the craft at that point when it was hovering?
I'd say 25 to 30 feet. It wasn't very far. I mean, it was right in front of our faces.
Did you have feel any physiological effects, any prickly skin, hair standing up, anything like that would indicate something electrical? No, we didn't actually, although we did have I think it was a peach tree. We had 3 peach trees in the backyard, and later, many years later, when we dug up the one peach tree, because it had died by that time, we noticed that the roots had grown in a circle, which is interesting, kind of circular. So the craft would have been not right over it, but very close to it, that particular tree. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, so it's one thing to see. Now, I've had many people say many things. I mean, over the years, the first reaction was on that Monday morning when I went to school. I would have been in about the 5th or 6th grade at that time. I mentioned this to my best buddy. I said, hey, Tom, this happened to me over the weekend. And I was expecting an intelligent response or, gee, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. And he just looked at me and he said, you want to go play baseball? And I thought, did you just hear what I said? Did you just hear what I told you?
I think that didn't register. I'll tell you, Jan, that did not register. It's like what you said maybe just didn't compute in that person's mindset. And we'll get into more of this coverage in our next segment. Jan Harzan is the brand new upfront and personal director of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. So many more questions to deal with Gene and Chris. You're in the Paracast.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
If you want to get your website online and you need reliable service, first-class service at the lowest possible price, there's only one place to go. Well, DreamHost has a special promotion with our show where they'll offer you unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click web apps such as WordPress, 24/7 support. You can save over $55. You want to know how? Go to dreamhost.com/radio, dreamhost.com/radio.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there is The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
There's a huge and hushed up conspiracy going on that's about to turn your lives upside down in the coming few months. Unbelievably, the media are keeping quiet about this. I'm sure they know it, but they probably know that revealing it on TV will generate mass hysteria and chaos. But I believe you should be informed about it, because when the sinister agenda is finally accomplished and everything unravels, only those who know this secret info will survive and thrive. Go to 123conspiracy.com right now to see the truth. The video at 123conspiracy.com reveals the real secret reason why Obama is after your guns and ammo. And it's not just in response to mass murders of preparing for war. It's something much darker. Go watch the video now at 123conspiracy.com before they shut it down. Again, that's 123conspiracy.com.
big business has discovered the preparedness market, and that makes it difficult to know where to go and who to trust. MyPatriotSupply.com is owned and operated by patriots just like you. Has the best prices on storable food, non-GMO seeds, water filtration devices, home canning equipment, survival and self-reliance books, and more. MyPatriotSupply.com has old-fashioned values and the absolute best customer service in the industry. Look for the deal of the day. Unique, affordable survival supplies that fit anyone's budget. Get same-day shipping on all orders and free shipping on orders over $49. Call 866-229-0927. 866-229-0927. Or visit MyPatriotSupply.com for emergency preparedness, self-reliance, and food independence. Shop with a name you know and a name you can trust. Before it's time to survive, it's time to prepare. MyPatriotSupply.com.
My name's Bruno. I'm 52 years old. I've tried different protein powders over the years, and they've all tasted pretty bad. I tried One World Whey and found it to be delicious. After 10 weeks on One World Whey, my wife commented, "You have more muscles and you're leaner than when you were 20 years old." My body has changed dramatically. I'm a cyclist. Normally I'll ride 2 days on and take 2 days off. After being on One World Whey, I rode 10 days in a row in over 100-degree heat, and then I'd take another 2 servings of One World Whey, and then work out at the gym for another hour and a half. I just couldn't believe these results. My normal muscle tightness and soreness after working out are virtually gone. Don't take my word for it. One World Whey comes in single servings. Just give it a try.
For a health and taste sensation you'll love, call 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. Or visit oneworldway.com. That's oneworld.com.
This is Skirt 70, author of UFO Mysteries, and you're listening to the Paracast.
With Gene and Chris in the Paracast, Jan Harzan joins us, telling about the sighting involving he and his brother up front and personal 30 feet away from this thing.
I would have been approximately 9 or 10 years old at that time. I don't know the exact date, but I remember it happened prior to the Michigan sighting where Swampcast became the watchword of the day, and it happened after I had moved to a new middle school. So I have it bracketed, but I believe it was April of 1965 approximately, and that would have made me actually, 10 years old, I believe.
Well, interesting. That's the same month that I had my up-close and personal non-human entity encounter as a kid. Same month, really? Same year. Uh-huh.
Same month, same year. Wow.
Yeah.
There's actually quite a bit of activity there. In fact, I just had a good friend of the family. My wife was talking to her and mentioned that I was taking over as the executive director for MUFON. And I mean, this is someone we don't talk about UFOs with particularly. And the next thing she does is she starts unloading her UFO sighting from Pasadena that she had in 1965, where 3 craft up by JPL came down and watched her as a young girl playing football in the backyard with her brother. It's just amazing when you start talking to people. This is not something people generally share. It's not the first thing you tell your newest friend.
No.
Unless you want them to run away quick. But,
actually, mine was a year prior to that. Mine was 64, I think, because I was 7. So that would have made it 64.
But that 3-year period, 64 through 66, was quite a bit of activity.
Yeah, there definitely was.
Before we go on, when this happened, did you go to your friends, your family, and say, "My heavens, look what we saw"?
Well, it's interesting. My brother and I talked about it, and we decided going to the authorities, since we were only 9 and 10 years old, they weren't going to believe us anyway. And then we talked about talking to our parents, and we said, no, so we kept it to ourselves, basically. Particularly after that experience I had with my best friend, which the realization hit me that people have a hard time integrating this within their paradigm, within their belief system. And if people can't integrate it, then they just reject it and they ignore it. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges in this field, particularly among scientists and others, is if it's not in your belief system, it's not in your paradigm, it just doesn't exist. So we didn't immediately. Now, years later, maybe 5 years later, we did mention it to our folks, and their take on it was, it was interesting to them. I mean, they believed us, but no, I did not go around telling everybody I met that I'd just seen a UFO.
The best way to make friends with the girls, especially.
No, not really. No, it can be frightening to a lot of people.
Did not endear you to them, but was this something that just kept staying with you during your teen years? Did you ever see anything else?
Well, I had other, what I would call paranormal experiences, but I never saw another craft, at least not as a young man. So the answer to that is no. But what the effect it did have on me was when I saw this craft, it struck me that the technology that the craft was displaying, that if we could harness that, we could greatly advance where mankind is from a standpoint of transportation. This thing obviously could get from here to there pretty darn quick. So it's just unfathomable to me that, 100+ years later, we're still ramming air over a wing to get people to fly from here to there when this technology is sitting right in front of our face that we could figure out and harness and put to good use. The other, which I didn't really think of immediately, but later on, was just the whole energy system. So there was no tanks or any propellant or any fuel on this thing. So whatever energy it was generating internally or out of the vacuum of space. So, I just think from a technology standpoint that forget the people, forget who's coming here or why they're coming here. Just looking at the technology that's available to us was very startling to me and very exciting. And so one of the things I did was I started to go down the path of being a scientist, being an engineer, and I ended up getting into UCLA School of Engineering, where I studied at first electrical, but then I switched over to nuclear because I figured it was either an electromagnetic or a nuclear or some combination of those forces that was causing them to be able to do what they did. Unfortunately, I quickly realized that our technology and our science at that point was pretty lacking, and that we weren't going to get there just using the standard textbooks and things that existed at the moment. So I looked around and I was thinking about changing my major, but I ended up staying with it and graduating with my degree in nuclear engineering. And then, of course...
You and Stanton Friedman.
Yeah, Stanton was a physicist, but nuclear physicist, correct. That's correct.
Now, nuclear engineering, in what sense does that apply to the field?
Well, for me, it applied in that there was some either nuclear forces, electromagnetic forces, some kind of forces that were being negated by this craft that allowed it to just hover in the sky without any wings or propellers or engines, but just hang there. The only obvious means of propulsion that I could tell was this humming noise coming from it, high voltage humming noise.
So there was never any doubt when you saw this thing, this is a solid metallic craft, obviously far more advanced than anything we could produce?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah,
now,
so you automatically just assume that this was something that wasn't something of ours.
Well, it definitely was. In my opinion, it definitely was not ours. Now, could it be in other countries? Could it be another civilization living on this planet? It's possible. I mean, it doesn't have to be of extraterrestrial origin, but it's certainly not something from the United States inventory at that time. At least that's my belief. And the reason I believe that is because if it had been ours, 50 years later, you would think that we would be putting that into some kind of commercial use. Now, maybe that's naive, but I believe that to be true. Now, I do have a researcher friend whose father was a research scientist at the Rockwell Science Center in Thousand Oaks, which is where I grew up. This is where the sighting occurred. And his view of it is, this is obviously something my father was working on, and they were just testing it, and you happen to see it. And I said, well, Bill, it's possible. I certainly put that down as a possibility. But why would they be testing their craft at 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday in my backyard? That doesn't make any sense to me.
That's a good question. Why would they? Why would even ET be there, or some ultra-terrestrial or crypto-terrestrial? Why would they be in your backyard?
It's a very good question. I have no real answer to it. I mean, I have some theories. I mean, one is that I think there is some element of consciousness to this whole matter. And having been sitting on our bed reading this Flying Saucer Review and reading those lines that say that these craft are seen around, military installations, nuclear power plants, and places where UFO research are being done, anti-gravity research is being done, and then thinking to ourselves, we actually verbalize to ourselves, oh my gosh, maybe one of these things will come visit us. I have to believe there was some kind of a connection to that whole thing.
So maybe that might be interesting to discuss further. But I wanted to focus on something else you mentioned earlier, and that is when I asked you about more experiences, you said you had some paranormal experiences, and we're going to have to break for the next segment in a moment, in about a minute. But maybe you can start and tell us any of those experiences that you had worth repeating. Give us one. Throw us a bone.
Okay, I will do that.
So go ahead, please.
Did you want me to do that now?
Start with it, and then we'll do the break, and then we'll come back and complete it.
Well, the two specific ones was when I was 3 or 4 years old. I woke up from a nap, and there was a angel or light being sitting on a chair across from me, watching me, which scared the holy terror out of me. And then the other one was that I had a time loop, much like Groundhog Day, that it occurred, where time looped on itself, which is very strange.
Oh, boy. This will be the great cliffhanger, ladies and gentlemen. Time loop. I want to focus on that before we continue with some of the other stuff, and, of course, about the current state of MUFON. Our guest is Jan Harzan, the organization's new international director. You're on with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast. The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
Is there a secret UFO agenda? Do strange creatures from the darkest corners of the mind roam the earth? Is there evidence for mind control, time travel, or devious government conspiracies? Find out the inside scoop on the latest conspiracies, paranormal activity, and Fortean phenomena when you subscribe to Tim Beckley's Conspiracy Journal. It's jam-packed with stories, special book and DVD promotions, and the best news, it's absolutely free, sent right to your mailbox. Plus, a bonus free email newsletter sent out every Friday. Simply send an email with your name and address to Mr. UFO at webtv.net. That's Mr. UFO at webtv.net. Find out what they don't want you to know.
You've thought about it for years. Well, the time is now. You need a secret bunker, and you need it deep and strong. Atlas Survival Shelters should be your first and only choice. The experts at Atlas can help you choose a shelter that has all the comforts of your home and is 11 times stronger than square box shelters. Call Atlas at 1-855-4BUNKERS. 1-855-4BUNKERS. Or visit IWantThatBunker.com. Atlas Survival Shelters. Better prepared than scared.
September is National Preparedness Month. That's right. We like to call it Prep-tember. And there's no better place to get prepped than with emergency essentials at BePrepared.com. This month only, save 40% on our super supply of freeze-dried vegetables. That's a savings of $159. Freeze-dried pork sausage crumbles are 39% off. Regularly $39.95, now just $23.99. There's a lot more. Call Emergency Essentials at 800-999-1863 or visit BePrepared.com. The choice is clear. Be unprepared or BePrepared.com.
An e-cig revolution is sweeping across the country. But is yours American-made? Vaporite e-liquid by LeSig is. Manufactured in Arkansas with 100% USA-sourced ingredients. And when you buy American, you support local jobs. Vaporite e-liquid by LeSig is top quality at an affordable price. The very principle that once drove the American economy. Get great taste with no ash, tar, or smoke. You'll be wondering why you didn't make the change to Vaporite e-liquid by LeSig a long time ago. LeSig.com has everything you need, for beginners to the advanced vaping enthusiast, with a wide variety of hardware, and also imported e-liquid flavors as well. Plus, LeSig smokes the competition with fast, free, same-day shipping, real people customer service, and a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Support our country and become a Vaporite at LeSig.com. or call 870-525-1440. 870-525-1440. LeSig e-cigarettes for today's modern smoker.
A little over a year ago, I began to do a lot of research into why, even though I had a pretty good-sized meal, that I was still starving. And my research led me to a well-known fact that most of the soils that we grow our crops on here in the United States and across the industrialized world are almost completely depleted of almost all of the key minerals and trace elements that our bodies need to rebuild themselves, fight off cancer, and be healthy. I then searched out the best vitamin and mineral company out there and discovered Youngevity. The Youngevity products are designed to give you the real nutrition you need, and once you've got that, you don't have to eat as much to be satisfied. I've lost 37 pounds in 2 months, simply getting the vitamins and minerals I need. Check it out for yourself. It's incredible. Go to InfoWarsTeam.com today and order your first canister of Beyond Tangy Tangerine Complete Multivitamin Mineral Complex Dietary Supplement. That's InfoWarsTeam.com.
Hi, this is Don Ecker, and you are tuned into the Paracast. Let me tell you what, you're going to hear stuff here that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Hear that, George Snorri?
A time loop. This is fascinating. Jan Harzan joining us with Gene and Chris on the Paracast. So let's have the specifics here. I remember, of course, the movie Groundhog Day, and maybe most of you remember it. This is a great kind of unusual, offbeat, quirky comedy with Bill Murray, who's offbeat and quirky. It's about this guy, this TV weatherman, who experiences the same day over and over again until he gets it right. So, okay, you had a time loop, Jan. How old were you when this happened? Where were you, and how did it manifest itself?
Well, I was around 11 or 12 at the time, and I was in the front foyer of my home where the front door comes into the house. And I had this experience where I had walked out the door, walked down to the end of my driveway, ran into my neighbor who was a young kid my age living next door at the time. We got into a verbal disagreement about something, which ended up turning into a fist fight and me throwing him into our ditch, which is next to our house, and jumping on top of him. And basically, we got in a big fight is what happened. And then all of a sudden, after it happened, it was like, bam, I was back in the foyer walking out the front door again. And it was at that moment it hit me. I just did this. And I literally walked out the front door, walked down my driveway exactly like I had just done, ran into my neighbor exactly as I had done that, said the exact same words to him, had the exact same response, got the exact same fight, went in, got the fight, actually threw him into the ditch, jumped in on top of him. I mean, we were young kids at the time, so that was what we did. We fought. And as I was going through the whole experience, I kept thinking to myself, I wonder if I can change this. Now, I didn't, because I wanted to see how it would play out, so I just let it play out as it was playing out. But as I'm literally going through these emotions, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if I can change this, or if this is all predestined. This is just the way it's just programmed, because it's already happened in time. But it was a very freaky experience. I mean, I've never had it happen since. I have spoken to other people who've had similar experiences, but it's pretty strange. It makes you question, what is time and how does time work?
Does that at all make you question what your original perceptions about the UFO or flying saucer you saw might be? Because if we're seeing that time may not be what we expect, what about something from out of time that just appeared briefly?
Well, it has brought up for me, I mean, I've thought through, for my sighting specifically, do we somehow have a way of creating reality? Do we have some way to do this? Could it be something out of time? Yeah, I mean, it certainly could be something out of time, time travel or something of that sort. I mean, I don't know the nature or origin of the craft that we saw. All I know is it was there. It was physical. It was showing very advanced technology. And for some reason, it wanted to show itself to us so that we would know it had been there, and then it pretty much left. But certainly, yeah, you think about all these things, trying to figure out how does this work, why is it happening, who's behind it, what is the technology that's doing this. It's a very fascinating study, in my opinion. I've always been a scientist's mind. I always want to know why, and this just piques your mind, in terms of thinking these ways. So, absolutely.
Do you ever think that maybe the UFO is manifesting itself to you in a way that you can understand? You're reading about flying saucers, you're reading about things that have a science fiction flavor to them. Ever consider that?
No, not really. I think I've often thought, was there a reason why it manifested or showed itself to me was to get me to, number one, know it's real, and number two, to be interested in it and the whole subject of how it works, so that perhaps I could help affect change on this planet and bring that about.
All right, so you think that you're being communicated with then by whatever is responsible for that craft?
Well, I'm not saying I was communicated with. I'm basically saying there's probably a reason. I'm thinking there's a reason why they showed themselves to us. Because why would they show themselves to us? So there must be something behind that that they're wanting to have happen. So, but I'm not here to do their bidding. I'm here to do what I want to do. I just happen to be interested in technology. I've always been a scientist type and engineering, and I could think of nothing more fascinating to work on than trying to figure out how to travel to the stars or beat gravity at his own game or create energy that allows us to not have to have power lines strung across the planet.
It's a very tricksterish event, similar to many that have been recounted down through the years. It definitely had an impact on your reality view. I mean, you never looked at your reality the same after that. So it definitely had a post-experience impact that pushed you in the direction of not really having any doubts anymore in your mind about the validity of this particular type of phenomenon.
Yeah, I would say, Chris, that a close encounter of this type has definite psychological
I know mine did. I've never been the same since then.
It is messing with your reality. It really did. Even just as much as having that repeating time incident, having your little Groundhog Day affair, that something was messing with you, something was telling you something, you think? And I mention this because I don't know if you were ever a reader of the magazines published by Ray Palmer. You know who he was, right?
I do not, so go ahead.
Okay.
Enlighten me.
All right, let me enlighten you. Ray Palmer was originally a science fiction writer and editor. He was the editor of Amazing Stories. He was the guy who brought to the public the Shaver mystery about a guy named Richard Shaver who claimed to have been in contact with dwellers beneath the surface of the earth, maybe a breakaway civilization or something. He talked about objects that later manifested themselves apparently as UFOs. So he may have been the guy, one of the early guys who talked about the arrival of UFOs. Well, Ray Palmer had a magazine out called Flying Saucers that discussed different theories about UFOs, one of which was the flying saucers were here to make us think. And, we can go into other things about Ray Palmer. We've done some episodes on him. We even talked to his son recently. He was also one of the founders of Fate magazine. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Absolutely.
But, okay. Now, when Palmer says flying saucers are here to make us think, well, certainly it made you think because it very much changed your life in many ways, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, going back to what Chris had said, too, I mean, just your whole worldview is shattered in a moment. I mean, you can believe in UFOs. I mean, you can say, oh, yeah, I know there's extraterrestrials out there. But I'll tell you, when they're 30 feet from your face, or whatever this craft was, I'm not saying it's extraterrestrial, but that seems like a good hypothesis. It just turns your whole world upside down. Now, and I was only 10 at the time, so if your view is that you live in a house, a little picket fence, and the sun comes up and the sun goes down, and you have breakfast and dinner, and you go play with your friends, and that's kind of your life at that age. And now all of a sudden something shows up that has nothing to do with anything you've ever experienced before. It stops you dead in your tracks, and it turns your whole world upside down. It's very psychologically disconcerting. That's what I would say. It was so much disconcerting that my brother, who was with me, a year younger than me in age, had a very difficult time in his life. He turned to alcohol and then to drugs, and I'm pleased to say he's now clean, but for years it messed him up in terms of who he was. Now, I notice a lot of people who have had been impacted or affected or encountered these objects, they have difficulty in their lives with stuff. It just seems to be very troubling because it just doesn't fit in with anything we currently, in the mainstream, know to be true.
Well, in your case, it made you a nuclear scientist.
Right. Exactly.
Do you think that you would have, in your wildest dreams, become what you became had it not been for those experiences?
I highly doubt it. It was the real driver for me growing up.
Okay. At what point did you get actively involved in a UFO research organization or organizations?
Well, actually, not until many years later. Now, the first time I ever saw MUFON was on a TV show. Actually, it was a news program where Walt Andrus was being interviewed. I think it was around 1972. And he was being interviewed by the news people who were on a sighting and wanted his opinion on something. So I had MUFON in the back of my brain. I knew about MUFON. But when I graduated from college, I kind of changed my focus. I went more into the business side of things, and I ended up joining IBM as a company because I really wanted to go with a company that had a huge research budget because I felt, if somebody could just apply some of that money to this problem, this opportunity, this challenge, that we could solve it. So I worked almost 37 years with IBM, retired just about 2 months ago, and in sales and marketing, I was an executive with them. And during my time there, I had the opportunity to talk to 2 senior VPs of research about this subject.
We'll split for the segment here, and we'll continue that. We have Jan Harzan, International Director of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. Joining Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast. America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCNlive.com, click on the banner, and download. Before you know it, you'll be listening to your favorite hard-hitting GCN shows, live or on demand, right on your Droid or iPhone, 24/7 and on the go. So download the Droid and iPhone app free by clicking on the banner at GCNlive.com. Thanks again for listening to GCNlive.com. Again, that's GCNlive.com. We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit and carting to a private bank, having it led back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Ted Anderson, I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
A healthy digestive system supports a healthy immune system. And a healthy immune system protects you against infections and disease. Pro EM1 Daily Probiotic Cleanse, available at Teraganics.com, is the key to digestive health. Pro EM1 is a powerful liquid probiotic and is gentle enough to use every day. Pro EM1 contains 3 groups of beneficial microbes and enzymes to cleanse and remove toxins, supports weight loss, improves absorption of food nutrients, and aids in controlling yeast and other infections. Pro EM1 is dairy, wheat, and soy-free, is non-GMO, has all natural certified organic ingredients, has no preservatives, and is never freeze-dried. Pro EM1 is the key to your digestive health. Order Pro EM1 Daily Probiotic Cleanse at Teraganics.com, spelled Teraganix.com. Teraganics.com, or call toll-free 866-369-3678. That's 866-369-3678. Pro EM1, the raw probiotic.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
Jan Harzan joining Gene and Chris in the Paracast this week. He's the new International Director of Mutual UFO Network. And he mentions here he worked for IBM, and as you were saying in the previous segment, you talked to a couple of executives about UFO research?
Yeah, over the course of a number of years, I mean, we've had several senior vice presidents of research, and I had the opportunity through different briefings and things that I had attended to actually spend some time just talking to them. The reaction wasn't that these things aren't real, although I think I found a little bit of skepticism, but it was mostly that, if we monitor everything, we have scientists looking at the basic fundamental building blocks of the universe and how, materials get built and things like that. That's fundamental to the business that IBM is in. And if there was anything to this, we would know about it. That was kind of the reaction I got. So it was an eye-opener for me that it's very difficult to get real scientists to study this problem with an open mind. That doesn't mean we don't have real scientists studying it, because we do, lots of them. But it's very difficult to get, if someone hasn't had a personal experience themselves or hasn't had some close family member, I think it's just we're dealing with a paradigm thing, and we're dealing with a belief system again, and it's just very difficult to get past that.
Okay, so you first became acquainted with MUFON when Walt Andrus was running it. When did you join, and when did you become more active in the organization?
Okay. Well, as I was moving through my career at IBM, I was a branch manager in Orange County, California, and I was getting some business coaching from what I would call a good friend. He wasn't a good friend at that time, but he was a business coach. We became good friends. And he asked me the question one day. He said, well, if you were independently wealthy, what would you be doing with your life? I said, well, if I was, had all the money in the world, I could do anything I wanted to do. I guess I'd be doing UFO research. He said, oh, really? He says, well, tell me more about that. So I told him about my experience and what I was involved in and how this was an important thing to me and how I felt it was something very important to be done. But, it needs to be funded, and, I don't have the money to do it now, but if I did, I would do that. And he said, okay. So he tucked that away, and about a month later when I was talking to him, working with him, he pulled out a flyer and said, hey, I wanted you to have this. And it was a flyer for the UFO Expo West in the Hyatt at the LAX airport, which was put on by a gentleman who used to do the Whole Life Expos, if I'm not mistaken. I went, wow. I didn't realize there were these kinds of things. I think it was actually a little pamphlet, a book, paperback, almost like a penny saver, but it was full of chock-a-block, block full of all the UFO stuff that was going to happen at this weekend event. I went to the event. I just decided I'd drive up to LAX and go to the thing. And I was totally blown away by the number of speakers they had, the topics they were talking about, the vendors. There was a MUFON table there. I got introduced to the MUFON people. I think this was like 89 to 91 in that time frame. It was quite an eye-opener for me. It was actually the place where I met a good friend of mine, Tom Keller. And Tom was also a graduate of the UCLA School of Engineering. He's about 10 years older than me. And he was standing there in the hallway. And I saw him standing there, and I walked up to him and I said, hey, this is kind of interesting, isn't it? And he said, sure is. So we started talking, became very, very good friends. He and I actually took a couple trips out to Area 51 together. And then he, of course, wrote the book, The Novice's Guide to UFOs, many years later. But that kind of got me started, and then I found out that the MUFON group in Los Angeles was holding meetings at the Pickwick Center up in Burbank, so I started attending those on a monthly basis, which was quite a hike. It was about an hour drive from my home. But that's what first got me started in MUFON. And then about several months later, a young lady by the name of Deborah Trincali had sent a letter out to all the MUFON members in Orange County saying, hey, we're going to start a chapter in Orange County just like they do in L.A., and if you'd like to attend, we're going to have a kickoff meeting. I'm trying to think of the name of the hotel. I think Countryside the Countryside Inn on Bristol in Costa Mesa. So I showed up to that meeting and met about 20 or 30 other like-minded individuals, and that was the launch of MUFON Orange County, which I ended up, after Deborah retired from there, running for the past 18, 19 years.
All right, so where does that lead to becoming the international director?
Well, in running a state section under the state director at the time, who was Georgianne Cefarelli. In fact, she's still the state director, a great lady who has been a good mentor to me through the years. We ran meetings. I know Chris has been at our meetings as a speaker at least 2 times, maybe 3 times over the years. It got me involved to the point where I was attending the symposiums every year, and this goes back, maybe almost 15, 20 years, all over the country. And as I was at those symposiums, I had an opportunity to talk to Walt Andrus quite a bit, and John Schuessler and the other folks who have been so instrumental in running MUFON for the past 45 years. And Walt would send around a notice to the different chapters soliciting chapters who would want to host the MUFON Symposium. And he would move it around from the west to the south to the east to the Midwest, So he would try to move it around every year to a different spot. And one year he sent out a note just saying, hey, I'm soliciting input for people who might want to host the symposium. And I put my board and I put a proposal, you'd say, together, a one-page proposal saying, here we'd like to do it, here's how we think it would be done. And we were lucky enough to be selected by Walt to host the 2001 MUFON Symposium. So in 2001, we held the symposium here in Orange County at the Hyatt Regency Irvine, and it was very, very successful, well attended. And as a result of that, between the time we accepted the award from Walt to the time we ran the conference, Walt had retired after 30 years of running MUFON, and John Schuessler had come in as the new international director. And John and I became good friends. And through that discussion, John asked if I would join the MUFON business board. At the time, when he took over, he tried to bring on some business people to help run MUFON more like a business, because we'd always struggled. Well, when Walt ran the business, it all ran out of his home, out of his garage, so there was no rent or anything like that. It was pretty easy to make ends meet. He had, I think, one full-time secretary and one part-time person who worked, and then he and his wife kind of worked the business. But John was trying to run it more like a business and build up MUFON stature, make it continue to make it even more professional than it was. And I got this opportunity to be on the business board and start working with a lot of great people on that board. And so through the years, I was asked if I would consider taking over the international director. At the time it was called international director, now it's called executive director. And of course, because of my work commitments, my family commitments, it was not possible at the time. So now that I've retired from IBM, now that my kids are pretty much in college or out of the house, I have the time and ability to do this. So it was the right time to make this change.
Okay, I think I'm going to ask a question here which will probably require a lot more than the remaining minute and a half of the segment to answer. Now, since John Schuessler left MUFON, we've had a procession of directors there. Of course, for example, James Carrion, and there was, I guess, kind of a cloud over his departure. Clifford Clift, David McDonald, and now you. And does that kind of constant movement of directors, that kind of hurt the organization because you get started and then there's another guy in there?
I don't think so, because we're really run by a business board. So it's not. That's the unique thing about MUFON. It's not like a lot of UFO groups, which are the person, and that's the group. I mean, it's that person is everything. In MUFON, we actually have a business board, as well as state directors and hundreds of field investigators. We have a whole organization here that it's not run as a dictatorship. It's run as a nonprofit organization with management oversight and board oversight. So I think actually that's one of the strengths of an organization like MUFON. You don't have to worry about it just evaporating and disappearing overnight because the leader died.
Okay, we will discuss more of MUFON and what's going on with them. In our next segment, we have the new director, Jan Harzan. Joining Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It just stopped responding. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Check it out. iWeb.com. That's iWeb.com.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Gold isn't for you? Ted Anderson, president of Midas Resources, one of the world's premier gold and precious metal investing firms. I get it. You wouldn't buy gold if you believed that the government is doing a great job, that the Fed will stop handing out trillions of dollars like bailout candy, that Social Security would be there for you. That's not what's happening. You might even pass on gold if the stimulus package wouldn't fuel inflation, or that the dollar wouldn't lose value, or that your retirement would be secure. If all looks rosy to you, then now is not the time to buy gold. For the realists, there have never been more sobering reasons to diversify with gold. Since 2001, the U.S. dollar index has tanked 30% while gold has risen 300%. Right now, savvy investors are adding gold to their portfolios. You should too. Find out what they know. Call us and I'll send you 10 reasons why gold will do very well, free. 800-686-2237. 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
It's hurricane and wildfire season again. Why do thousands of people sit in these reoccurring problem areas year after year, betting their lives that the disaster won't get them? Hundreds of you helped eFoods Direct ship 50,000 donated meals to the Oklahoma victims. The problem is we can't help everybody. If every one of us who can will take care of ourselves, we can all pitch in to take care of those who really can't. The new just-in-case pack from eFoods Direct is the big brother to the 7-day emergency pack designed for Oklahoma disaster donations. It contains a 2-month supply for one person, or a 1-month supply for 2 adults, or a 2-week supply for a family of 4. The $320 price is $50 less than retail. Call 800-409-5633 on the web efoodsdirect.com/Alex. Order 2 or more, get 10% off, free shipping applies. Call 800-409-5633 on the web efoodsdirect.com/Alex.
For over 5 years, you've been hearing about the Berkey Guy, so you may know a few things about him. For example, you are well aware of the superior quality and effectiveness of Berkey water filters and accessories. But did you know the Berkeys have had independent lab tests done to prove just how effective they are? It's true, and he can email you the test results. Just visit GoBerkey.com. You may also know that the Berkey Guy has helped tens of thousands of people get better prepared. Now here's something you may not know. GoBerkey.com has amazing specials and deals all the time on a wide variety of survival and preparedness products. Most ready to ship same day. Visit the Berkey Guy at GoBerkey.com and be sure to click the red Products on Sale Now button. You can always call toll-free 877-886-3653. Again, that's 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com, home of the Berkey Guy.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Jan Harzan is director of MUFON. You're on the Paracast with Gene and Chris. Okay, Jan, so we therefore expect that the director can change now every few years. So you may take it over. You have it now. Maybe in a few years somebody else takes over?
Well, that's a possibility. I think it's a 3-year term, and the board reelects the board reelects each board member too every 3 years as well. So you could run it as long as you really want to run it. There's nothing that says you only can be 3 years and then you're out. There's no term limits per se. So it's really just up to the purview of the board. The real strength is that we created an executive committee. We call it an advisory committee, but of the past 3 international directors. So we've got John Schuessler, Dave McDonald, and Clifford Clift, who work with me as I need them to make sure that we're consistent on how we do things, that we follow the process that we've started 45 years ago, If we need to change process, which obviously need to keep up with the times, we can do that. And then we have the full board behind that votes on any major changes. So I think I'm very, very pleased with our management team at this point in time.
Okay, so this is more of a committee type of organization. So if Jan Harzan says, let's do things this way, he can't just do them. You have to go back to the board and discuss it with them and work out something.
Well, I have latitude. I mean, I can make day-to-day decisions. But I mean, if it's something major, if we're going to rebrand MUFON or, change the logo or do something, extraordinary or start a major venture, the board needs to know about it. I mean, we can't just make a hard left or right turn. But I mean, I do have the power and authority to make day-to-day decisions. So if something needs to get done for business purposes, I can do that. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's not like I can run off and go create my own organization or do major changes without getting the buy-in of the board and hopefully the membership being the state directors and the people who have a vested interest in the running of MUFON.
Okay, so now that you've taken this position, then do you see that there are changes you'd like to make in the organization or just keep running things as they are?
No, absolutely. There's definite changes that need to be made. We need to really bring MUFON up to the 21st century quickly. And so my marching words are to go social, go mobile, and go global. And each of those could take probably 5 or 6 minutes to explain. But going social, we live in a social media world. I mean, information is bouncing around the world in a matter of seconds after something happens, and we've got to get much more on top of that phenomenon. So the first major change that I'm making, it's not really a change so much as mostly an update, is to create a social media website for our website, which will allow people to log in and be members. It'll be everything from a free membership to a full membership and everything in between. We need to make the information much more easily accessible to the public in terms of what's going on and how it's viewed. I mean, our current website is very old and dated. We need to, I think, shake this image of the black box of ufology. We have the information, and it is available to the public today. Unfortunately, you have to go in and know which links to click and know which search boxes to put in, and it's very cumbersome. It needs to be more easily accessible by the public and by researchers and by investigators, particularly MUFON investigators, to help us figure out this mystery and pull it all together. That's going to be my major thrust from a social standpoint. Also from a communication standpoint, which is part of social, we've created a team called the SRB, Science Review Board. On our very, very best sightings, this board comes together and reviews them and tries to come up with answers to what it might be and research study reports on things. The power of this is you have multiple scientific minds looking at the same sighting report or perhaps someone's, what they're putting forth as being truth and being able to analyze it and figure out what it is and what it isn't. And as part of that process, we have a monthly review of all the completed sighting reports from the last 90 days, where we have a small team, including our director of, our STAR team manager, our director of research, Robert Powell, who heads the team up, myself and another individual who go through these reports and literally crawl through them and determine what the best reports are for that month. Not every report that comes in is viable. Most, I would say, a good 75% of our reports clearly are IFOs. I mean, if you go on many of these websites where they have one-liners and you read them very quickly, you can weed out the shooting stars, the meteorites, the airplanes, the planets, just by reading the description. The difference on the MUFON website is that we collect lots of data, way more data, and lots more verbiage on the actual sighting event. So we have a 25-word summary, which we allow the witness to put in, but we also allow them to write as much as they want. Some of them fill up pages worth of information on their sighting report. So we whittle those down to what we call the sightings of interest, and then we crawl through those. We get usually 10 to 20, 25 a month, and we whittle those down to the significant 2 or 3. And those 2 or 3 go into a bucket, and then at the end of the year, we turn those over to the Science Review Board, and they choose the top 10 reports. So for the first time, we just published the top 10 sightings for 2012, and our intent is to do this every year. We're going to probably put a little more analytics into it in terms of all of the sighting reports, because we get between 5,000 and 10,000 reports a year. We're getting between 500 and 1,000 a month. Last month we had 927 reports, which is just a ton. I think people forget we're a completely volunteer organization, so we depend on volunteers to be able to go out and talk to these witnesses, go on the internet and try to figure out what they might have seen, go out on site, take soil samples or whatever needs to be done depending on the sighting itself. And there's a whole process for that. But we really are trying to get down to the significant few, and what I'd like to do is publicize those, because I think too much in the past, reports keep coming out, and they're IFOs, and I can tell you from having been a MUFON field investigator, if I had never seen a UFO, I'm not sure I'd still be in the business, because most of the reports you get are lights in the sky or very mundane things, balloons, planets. People swear they saw a landing craft hovering there, but when you really go out and you stare at it, you're looking at the planet Saturn, or you're looking at Venus, on a hot summer night with the atmosphere scintillating and the light scintillating, and it looks very, very strange. It was very interesting, but it's not a UFO. It's a UFO to people, but it's just a planet. So, but you weed all those out, and you get down to the significant few, and there's some very, very good sighting reports.
Well, John, this is Chris here. One of the things that has come up over the last few years is complaints about the membership not having as much say in the actual process of deciding on who's on the board, for instance. And are there any plans to change the actual organizational structure and giving the rank and file a little bit more involvement, picking and choosing and possibly electing officials?
Before we have that answer, we got to do our break, and then we'll have a complete answer from Jan Harzan of MUFON. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKEsoft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKEsoft.com.
American gardeners and fellow patriots, make the right choice with your money, time, and your family food supply. Choose 100% pure heirloom seeds in the Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com. Why spend more? The Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com is only $37.95 and includes 20 varieties of pure, hardy, easy-to-grow heirloom seeds. Yes, only $37.95. That's 70% less than our competitors. You could buy 3 Survival Seed Vaults for less than one of theirs. The Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com includes detailed planting and seed-saving instructions and ships same day. Plus, all orders over $49 ship free. MyPatriotSupply.com is American-owned by patriots like you, passionate about freedom and preparedness. Call now, 866-229-0927. That's 866-229-0927. Or discover more emergency preparedness items when you order at MyPatriotSupply.com. Choose the original. Choose the Survival Seed Vault at MyPatriotSupply.com.
We live in a complicated society. Stressful issues are always popping up. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone? Have you ever been overcharged for a repair? Have you ever signed a contract or a document? Worried about identity theft? How many times have you been in those unique situations where you just wanted to call an attorney to find out if you're right or wrong, or what your legal rights are? But every time you think about calling an attorney, what do you think about first? That's right. Who do you call? And how much will it cost? Our friends at Legal Shield have found a solution. With a nationwide network of 6,900 attorneys who average 19 years of experience, Legal Shield's law firms take over 40,000 calls per week helping their members. For less than $20 per month, you can have access to Legal Shield on everything from the trivial to the traumatic. Let Legal Shield stand up for your rights at lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com. Or call 855-340-SAVE, 855-340-7283.
Every time you eat a cooked food, your body responds by producing an increase in circulating white blood cells. This happens because nature designed us to eat food that is undamaged at the molecular level. When we heat food to normal cooking temperatures, we change the shape of the molecules into shapes the body cannot use. The body now looks at them as toxins and allergens. In an effort to protect itself from this irritant, the body intelligently increases the amount of circulating white blood cells to act as garbage collectors. The white blood cells gobble up all the unusable damaged food particles to neutralize their cell-damaging properties. This puts stress on your organs of elimination, and your body is subject to cell damage and inflammation. If you'd like to start experiencing the benefits of undamaged protein in your diet, give One World Whey a try. It is a truly undamaged protein powder that will thrill your tastes and every cell of your body. Call 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. Or visit oneworldwhey.com.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
With Gene and Chris in the Paracast, a question about more member participation in the things that MUFON does of the director, Jan Harzan. What's your response?
Well, the way members can participate in MUFON is very much like I did. They can start off as a field of, they can just become a member, become a journal subscriber. We have an electronic journal for, I think, $35 a month. We have a hard copy journal, which is the same journal, for $50 a year, rather, per year. And then if they'd like to get more involved, they can become a field investigator and get involved in their state or country where they reside in terms of handling these reports that come in. I mentioned we get between 500 and 1,000. They become part of our case management system. They get an opportunity to work actual cases and be hands-on. They can attend, anyone can attend our symposiums and meet with the board or with the various members and various state directors. So there's lots of ways to get involved and influence, how things work. I don't think we'll ever have a let's let the world vote on who should be this or that, because then it turns into a popularity contest. And I think we have a very, very strong board with very good credentials who look over MUFON, and I think that's really the right way to run the organization. But you can work your way up. Become a state section director, run maybe a county or two, work your way up to state director, and then eventually work your way onto the board and international director. That's the path that I took. Realized that 25 years ago, I was standing in the foyer of the Hyatt at the LAX airport, just bathing in ufology and all of the speakers, many of which are still around. And today I'm the executive director for MUFON. I think that's a path anyone could take.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing that's also come up a lot as a subject on the Paracast, and when we look at the future of ufology, now you mentioned about streamlining and becoming more involved in the social network explosion. I have a question from one of our longtime posters and very, very active participant at forum.theparacast.com, ufology. He's one of our Canadian listeners and a very active forum member. And he has a whole bunch of questions here, but one of them I think is important, and it kind of gets to the point of a future vision here. What efforts are you guys making there at MUFON now to get young people more involved in ufology? It's come up here at the Paracast a lot, the future of ufology. And you mentioned you're going to be getting more involved and getting MUFON more involved in social media. That's going to help attract, I think, a younger generation to the UFO subject. So what other plans do you have for MUFON to attract younger members?
Well, I'm hoping that this new social website will be a big boon to them. Kids today are all about social media. If you see any kids today, even when there are 5 of them together, they're all staring at their phone. What I find fascinating is they're standing there with each other, but they're staring at their phones and Instagramming each other and Facebooking each other, and just that's how things get done today with the kids of this current generation. So we need to be able to be where they are and to be live on social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are all things that here to now we've used very limited from a MUFON standpoint, and we're hoping to make them a mainstay of how we move information around between people. Now, it's interesting because you get above the 30 crowd, or maybe 40 or 50 crowd, which we have quite a few members, over 50. People aren't quite as social media savvy. That's not something they do. We even have members in their 80s who don't even use email. So you have to figure out how you reach all these different strata of subscribers and members and people. Now, to be a field investigator, to be a state director, you have to be at least on email, and you have to have a computer, because you just can't get your job done without it. But the youth market is a target market for us. It's something that's very important. I think we could also reach them through some of our merchandise. We're looking at revamping the entire MUFON merchandise line. They love cool shirts, T-shirts, and things like that. Get them involved as volunteers, helping out with sighting reports, becoming field investigators. Got a call from a young lady just 2 days ago from the University of Laverne here in Southern California. She was interested in doing an internship with MUFON. There are people out there, young people, who definitely want to be involved and are getting involved. So we just need to reach out and meet them where they are, and I believe that's in the social media space.
Okay, and I wish you luck on that, because I think that's the future of the organization. As you mentioned, there's a lot of older folks that are in MUFON, and it's the younger generation that's going to keep it going. We have a number of questions here, Jan, about the last few years. The MUFON Symposium has seemed to some people to it's been veering away from the scientific investigation of UFOs. And a question here from one of our later sign-ups from this month at forum.theparacast.com, Steve Zaliski, says, I was a member of MUFON for a year back in the 70s. I ended my association with it because of all the crackpots and cultists who have caused so much damage to serious scientific and scholarly UFO research. And this is his question. Having cult leader Stephen Greer speak at your July convention does not bring credibility to MUFON. For your information, Outside Magazine published an extensive expose on Greer, and we know he's very controversial. And he also does put a lot of fannies in the seats, too. But where'd you come down on getting really controversial people that have that seem to be, this almost a cult figure, like a Greer? What do you think about having them being featured at the symposium?
Well, let me just say, on the 2013 symposium, which was one of our most wildly successful ever, we had over 700 people in attendance over the 4-day event. We had, I think, 10 or 11 very, very good. I think we had 7 PhDs out of our entire speaking staff, as well as, of course, an MD, which is Dr. Greer, and a master's. And the speakers, without question, were all just outstanding. Ted Peters, who's a theologian out of Berkeley. We had Al Harrison, who's a former retired professor from UC Davis in sociology. We had Dr. David Jacobs, who, of course, is a history professor out of Temple, also retired. We had quite if you go on and look at the website, MUFONsymposium.com, I think it's probably one of the best speaking lineups we've had in years. Now, specific to Stephen Greer, what we had asked Stephen to do was to come in and give us a scientific view of the DNA evidence for the Atacama humanoid.
Okay, but aren't you aware here, Dr. Greer brings a lot of baggage to what he does, and he's very controversial, and there are very severe questions about things that he's doing. There's a recent expose report that people who've worked with him have left his organization under the cloud of financial improprieties, possible steroid use. You've heard about this, haven't you?
I've seen the posts on the internet, but then, they're just internet posts. So.
Right, but this is going on for years. I mean, we've had him on the show in the past, and it seemed to me like he wanted to be promoting Stephen Greer as opposed to solving UFOs. Also, we have CSETI, this organization where people have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to go with him on a trip to get in touch with E.T., flag down a flying saucer. And of course, they have to sign an NDA. They can't tell anyone about it. You know, I'm just saying here is, does someone like that really bring credibility to MUFON?
Well, here's what I know about Dr. Greer. Stephen has had his own experiences. He wrote a book. If you read it, it takes you through his experiences that he's had personally with this subject. He is 100% dedicated to solving the issue, although his belief is that it's already solved, that these are extraterrestrials and they're using interdimensional physics to do what they do. He's just trying to leapfrog the process and go directly to, our visitors and saying, why do we need to go through the government? Why do we need to do this? So I salute him for that. I mean, that's a very novel approach. So I think too many of us are looking on this planet for someone of higher authority to bless us and tell us that these things exist. Why? We know they exist. We're seeing them daily. I get reports coming in all day long with people who've seen these craft. We know they're there. So his focus is in the right place there. Now, I know people have a hard time with his personality and with his maybe his style. And
the GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It just stopped responding. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Check it out. iWeb.com. That's iWeb.com.
Ceramic body armor is rated to stop 6 hits. But what about the 7th? Unlike ceramic or Kevlar, Infidel body armor is proven to take hit after hit, and it just won't quit. Reasonably priced and designed for the smart civilian prepper, Infidel stops hundreds of hits from small arms to high-powered rifles. That means safety and peace of mind. Buy yours at InfidelBodyArmor.com. Spelled INFIDEL BodyArmor.com. Infidel Body Armor just won't quit.
You are now in the crosshairs. The NSA and FBI are treating you like a criminal and monitoring your every move. Ron Paul said recently, the evidence of the totalitarian nature of this government is on display undeniably every day. What's taking place right now is a coup and the destruction of the Constitution. Fortunately, there is something you can do about it. Learn how to be invisible, lock down your privacy, and even disappear forever. Go to privacylockdown.com to learn how. That's privacylockdown.com.
It's time to get healthy, and your first step towards a healthy lifestyle begins at the Healthy Living Expo, Saturday and Sunday, September 28th and 29th at the Music City Center in Nashville. Get your free tickets at thehealthylivingexpo.com and join us for Tennessee's most comprehensive health, fitness, and nutrition expo. There's over 100 exhibits with information and services to help create a healthier life. Also, more than 25 health screenings, cooking demos, and the latest fitness trends. Plus, visit the Longevity booth. Get free tickets at thehealthylivingexpo.com. There's prizes all day on the stages and at the booths, like fitness memberships to an area health club every hour. The Healthy Living Expo, September 28th and 29th at the Music City Center, Nashville. Get free tickets for yourself, your family, your friends, and everyone you know at thehealthylivingexpo.com. Get to the website now because tickets are $10 at the door. The Healthy Living Expo, your first step towards a healthy lifestyle.
There's a guy named Dr. Wallach who is anything but your typical doctor. Both a veterinarian and a naturopathic physician, Doc asks, why is this country spending more money on health care by far and ranking 50th in health and longevity worldwide? Doc believes that people should empower themselves with a basic understanding of nutrition, taking charge of their life, and attaining optimal health and longevity through nutrition, not by toxic pharmaceutical drugs that lead to side effects that require more expensive and toxic pharmaceutical drugs. Talk about being dependent on drug companies to our own destruction, no less. This is clearly a deadly recipe. Doc Wallach's message is resonating with an increasing number of Americans who are waking up to all the government and big pharma manipulation of our health and healthcare system. I like what Doc Wallach is saying and doing to enlighten people about healthcare, and I've joined forces with him to help this tireless crusader spread his message. Visit brightsideben.com and listen to Doc Wallach's deadly recipe lectures. It makes a lot of sense, and I invite you to join our Brightside Ben team. Go to brightsideben.com. That's www.brightsideben.com.
Hello, this is John Burroughs, one of the witnesses to the Rendlesham UFO incident. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
We could go back and forth about Dr. Greer, but you understand, I think, the controversial nature about what he says and about his evidence, so-called.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because let me just leave you with this one. After he spoke at the symposium, I had 3 different detractors come up to me, and I won't mention the names on the air, but these are very significant people, and tell me that they were very impressed with his presentation and were blown away with what he had shared and where he was headed, and basically apologized to me for having written scathing notes about why he was on the agenda. So I would encourage anyone who's got a problem with it that maybe they should open up their mind and go watch the DVD and hear what he presented, because it was quite fascinating and it was very scientific. And that's what MUFON's about. We're about the scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity.
Sure, and, I understand your point of view. I just think all this baggage he carries with him, even if he's doing some real good work, that baggage has to hurt, because, as you know, when you get people like that and they come up before conventions, the media that's already maybe somewhat predisposed not to take UFOs seriously will go after him or Paula Harris and denigrate the entire event, even though you've got great speakers and great evidence. And that's the point I think Chris and I are trying to make it. You got to be careful about that. And maybe it's being politically correct, but maybe you have to be overly politically correct to get UFOs accepted more. Chris, you got more questions?
Now that you mention it, Gene, that leads me right to a perfect question from another one of our recent sign-ups at forum.theparacast.com, Pierre. Jan, in your opinion, what needs to be done in order to bring ufology to the point of being taken seriously by mainstream media? There have been so many efforts in the last 50 years, but very little progress. And do you see this trend continuing, or do you perhaps foresee some sort of significant breakthrough as it relates to media coverage and the media's acceptance of the subject?
Well, I think that's a very good point. I mean, whenever I'm contacted by the media, the first question I always ask them is, what's the angle of your report? And first question is, what do you know about the subject? And invariably, there's a long pause at the end of the phone, and the reporter or writer has absolutely no history. They've just been told by their editor, go do a story on MUFON or go do a story on UFOs, and off they go. I've actually had TV cameramen from the news station show up at my local meeting in Orange County and want to do a piece on what we do down there with the speakers. And first thing I do is I introduce them to all the PhDs that are at the meeting, and then I introduce them to all the aerospace workers who come and listen to the speakers. And then I have them, interview Dr. Bob Wood, who's a physicist from 43 years at McDonnell Douglas, right? When they get done with all that, their eyes are like big as saucers. And these guys actually did a whole expose. They had me standing up on top of a rock, shooting me with the moon in the background. I'm thinking, this is going to turn out well. Well, that piece, because we did such a great job of taking them through and educating them on the topic and introducing them to intelligent scientists and having them interview them and realize that this is not a joke, it never got aired. And my take is that the editor of the news station who sent them up there to do this story, or down here to do the story, because it was out about Los Angeles that they came, was looking for more of a funny piece that he could put on the news. And since it didn't turn out to be a funny piece, they just scrapped it.
Oh, man.
Didn't fit the meme of what they were trying to present.
I mean, it's the laugh factor. Let's go show these crazy people who go talk about UFOs, And then they realize that there's intelligent people sitting there and intelligent people speaking, and it doesn't play to their story. So, how do we get the media more involved? Well, here's how I think we do it. And this is what we're doing. This is what MUFON is doing. Every month, we sit down and we go through the hundreds of reports that have come into us for that month, and we winnow it down to the 10, 20, 30 that are of the best cases of interest. We call them cases of interest. And then we take those 10, 20, 30, whatever it ends up being. Every month it's a little bit different because it doesn't run equally every month. We whittle it down to the 2 or 3 we think are the absolute best cases in there that are just solid. Definitely not a planet. Definitely not a balloon. Definitely not an airliner coming in for landing or something of that nature. And very credible witnesses. These are policemen. Doctors, lawyers. I mean, these are very good people seeing these things, and we put those in the bucket for publication later. We then take those, and we are starting to send them out to the local press. So Roger Marsh, who is our journal editor, I'm going to be naming him shortly as our director of public relations. We've had some good ones in the past, and he's going to take over. He has been actually taking these reports, sending them out to the local media and the national media, and we're starting to get bites and people doing stories on them. And TV shows, not TV shows, but news shows and newspapers starting to write this stuff up. So you're going to start to see a lot more in the press, I'm hoping, over the next 6 to 12 months than you've seen in the past, because we are going outbound rather than waiting for the press to come to us.
Let me ask you a fast question here about the organization as a whole. Do you take a position on what UFOs are, or do you just say this is something that has to be investigated? Please let me know.
Sure. You want an answer right now?
Sure.
Number one, UFOs are real. And number two, at least some of these UFOs appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. Number three, there's 100 other theories of where they could come from, and there's nothing mutually exclusive about any of the theories. I mean, they could all be true, right? So I always tell at my local meetings, which I've turned over now to Deborah Edwards, who's the new state section director. Actually, Georgianne Seffarelli named her as the new state section director for Orange County. But when I'm announcing the meetings, I always say to people, I say, what we know to be true are two things. One is that UFOs are real. They're physical devices operating in and about our planet under intelligent control of some sort. Number two, at least some, and I'll underline some, of these craft appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. I say appear because we get the reports, like Betty and Barney Hill, like Travis Walton. I mean, obviously these are beings that you don't see walking around the streets, so they're probably not from this planet. So they're you have to be of extraterrestrial or out there. I guess you can always say out there because you have other theories which need to be explored. You have the interdimensional theory. You've got time traveler theory. You've got indigenous species that lives beneath the oceans or inside the earth somewhere. There's all sorts of possibilities, but they're not the people that we would deal with on a day-to-day basis. So that's where we're at now. We believe that the way to solve this thing is through data collection and the scientific study. And I do believe the public needs some place to be able to report its sightings to, and MUFON is that organization. And then we just need to make sure that that data is used by researchers. So that's my next thrust, which will be to start to engage academics and scientists and corporations in the search. And we just need to make it palatable to them that they can do this kind of work. I think the biggest crime of the century is letting the intelligence community muddy the water so bad that good scientists, good academics, good researchers can't be involved in this without getting their name tarnished or their reputation tarnished. I can't tell you the number of scientists that I have asked to come to MUFON symposiums as speakers, and they're always very polite, but they always have some other place they need to be.
That's why I was suggesting to you that when you have someone like a Dr. Greer, it's not helping necessarily in the scientific community. But let me ask you another question here. With regard to ongoing investigations and what we know about UFOs, do you think that any of the governments of the world have guilty knowledge, real evidence that they're hiding as to what the answers to the UFO mystery are?
Well, this is only my opinion. I think when we say world government or government, we think of the United States. We think, Obama's the president. You've got, here in California, Dianne Feinstein's the senator. Everybody's got 2 senators, and you got congressmen. I think that the general people who are at the top of the government or run the government probably don't have any knowledge of what's going on. I think there are probably people buried deeper in the layers of government, or I truthfully believe it's more in the intelligence military group where this stuff resides.
Well, the private sector and the aerospace companies, too, don't forget.
Yes, well, that's what I mean. That's exactly where I think the information is in there, and there are probably some bureaucrats from, sometimes the NSA or the CIA, I don't know who ultimately has responsibility for it. But, if you talk to Dr. Bob Wood or other folks, they'll talk about MJ-12, they'll talk about who's on MJ-12 today. There's obviously somebody who knows something about this. But to go march on Washington and demand that the president turn over what he knows, I doubt that the president knows much of anything, personally.
He may be the last person to know. He may be the person who, if they ask, they'll say, well, there's nothing to it, or you don't have the need to know, and
exactly.
You're going to be gone in 4 years or 8 years, so does it really matter? Jan Harzan of MUFON joining us with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCNlive.com, click on the banner, and download. Before you know it, you'll be listening to your favorite hard-hitting GCN shows, live or on demand, right on your Droid or iPhone, 24/7 and on the go. So download the Droid and iPhone app free by clicking on the banner at GCNlive.com. Thanks again for listening to GCNlive.com. Again, that's GCNlive.com. Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
My name's Bruno. I'm 52 years old. I've tried different protein powders over the years, and they've all tasted pretty bad. I tried One World Whey and found it to be delicious. After 10 weeks on One World Whey, my wife commented, "You have more muscles and you're leaner than when you were 20 years old." My body has changed dramatically. I'm a cyclist. Normally I'll ride 2 days on and take 2 days off. After being on One World Whey, I rode 10 days in a row in over 100-degree heat, and then I take another 2 servings of One World Whey, and then work out at the gym for another hour and a half. I just couldn't believe these results. My normal muscle tightness and soreness after working out are virtually gone. Don't take my word for it. One World Whey comes in single servings. Just give it a try.
For a health and taste sensation you'll love, call 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. Or visit oneworldway.com. That's oneworldwhey.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
With Gene and Chris on the Paracast, we have Jan Harzan of MUFON. We're asking him the questions you want us to ask. And we're not always asking friendly questions either, as you notice. Chris, there's a bunch more questions out there in the audience from our forum. Would you maybe bring up some more?
Yeah, this is becoming more and more of a problem, and that is the accessibility of special effects and editing software that are coming up with some pretty ingenious hoaxes. And now that we have such accessibility for desktop, animation and effects and other things, Do you see this whole problem of hoaxing as being something that is going to continue, possibly get worse? And what do you have to say? I have one questioner here that wants you to make a statement of condemnation for the third phase of moon folks who are over there creating hoaxes and then trying to pass them off as real sightings. So where do you come down on this whole subject?
Well, where I come down on it is I wish there was a law that made it illegal to do such a thing. I mean, I understand in other countries that it's actually punishable by jail time to actually perpetrate a UFO hoax.
Oh, yeah? Which countries?
I believe, I may be wrong here, but I believe it's France. But I can check on those facts. But I think that, frankly, it ought to be something punishable by at least a misdemeanor or some kind of a fine if someone tries to purposely do it, because it wastes a lot of people's time, frankly, and it could be disruptive to the population to put false information out there. I doubt we'll ever get because of freedom of speech in the United States, I don't think we'll ever get it to pass. So here's what we do. We get about 1 or 2% of our sighting reports are clearly hoaxes, and the vast majority of them we can tell fairly quickly because we contact almost everyone back on the report, and we can just tell by the way it's written, by the facts and the way they do stuff. Here's a good example. There was a report about 5 years ago about a craft that landed in Bakersfield, and the guy reported that it landed in his backyard and actually a being came out of the craft. And so having seen this, I immediately jumped on it, and I contacted the guy through email. I don't believe he gave us his phone number. Well, I got the sheepish reply back from the guy. Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just goofing around, and I didn't realize anybody was going to come back at me on this thing, right? Well, so, I mean, I was excited. I was, oh, my gosh, we got a real craft on the ground. There's beings, So people do it for a joke. They do it for fun. But you're talking about the very sophisticated hoaxes where people might actually build a craft and go fly it. We have a lot of people doing that these days. Or even worse yet, go on using animation graphics and create a completely realistic encounter using their computer.
With modern analytical techniques, though, I mean, people like Jeff Sanyo and, of course, Bruce Maccabee, Ray Stanford, for instance, they can take one look at a vast majority, I'd say a highly, 99% of these, and instantly see that it's a hoax. But for the average person, the kid out there who wants to learn about this subject, he doesn't have that expertise to rely on, and it's very easy to palm these things off as real. And I think it's really doing the field a disservice, and, I think there should be a law against it, too. It's the educational part of this. People are being miseducated, and that could really be a problem, I think, in the future for an organization like MUFON.
Well, I think it could be, although there's just as much technology that allows you to go figure out from pixelation and different things. Mark D'Antonio is also one of our photo analysts, one of our primary photo analysts, and he works with FX models. There are techniques that can be used to discern whether an image has been overlaid or not, whether it was implanted in the middle of another image. So just as much technology exists on the other side to go figure this stuff out digitally as there is to go make this stuff digitally.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be nice to have Mark's time tied up with looking at real footage? I mean,
absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Pointed out. I mean, it's a time waster. Well, here's another contentious kind of element that has really, I think, tarnished the field to a certain extent, and that is the whole hypnotic regression as an investigative tool. I have a question here from Han, who says, what is the official MUFON position regarding hypnotic regression and the evidence gathered using it? Is there an official position? And he also wants to know your personal opinion on it.
Of using hypnosis for information gathering? Well, I mean, it's been a technique used for years for a number of things, including, accident investigations and regular types of things like that. MUFON's official position, we actually have a director of abductions, Kathleen Marden. Of course, her aunt was Betty and Barney and Hill.
Yeah, she's been a guest on the Paracast several times, so we know her.
Yeah. So, MUFON's position, I mean, we do take reports of abductions. We do have a referral network to get people help. That's generally why they come to us, is more that they're looking for someone they can talk to. They're looking for someone that can help put their life back together. it goes back to the psychological effects of having a encounter of that nature that we talked about earlier in the show. So Kathleen does a great job of talking to those people, understanding what happened with them, and then getting them the resources and help that they request or need. So, I mean, that's what we're here for. I mean, as far as whether it's true or not or what happened or not, I mean, we don't really put any kind of imprint on that. I mean, obviously people are having an experience. It's not typically, it can be, but it's not typically you're straight out. I was standing there and a UFO came by. It's much more involved, but it's happening all over, at least all over the United States. I don't know if it's globally. Someone told me the other day that it doesn't seem to happen as much in Europe as it does in the United States. So that's an interesting thought that could be a research project in and of itself. But I mean, we just try to be here for the public to allow them to report what they see and without judgment, and then assign investigators to go look into it. And in the case of the abductions, we have Kathleen, who's a great resource to help people take it to the next level.
Okay, yeah, and that's I think that's a pretty good approach to take. Obviously, hypnotic regression does have its problems in terms of the quality of information, but if you have somebody that's properly trained, I guess it could be an effective tool. Although there's still always going to be questions about it. Well, here's another question that, and this is an interesting one. Again, this comes from Han, who's one of our longtime posters at forum.theparacast.com. If for one day, Jan, you could have unlimited funds, the highest command, and the highest security clearances to all government files and buildings, where would you start, and how would you deploy those resources?
That's a good question. Well, I don't. I mean, if you're not on the inside, you're not on the inside. So that's the parts. Where I would like to go, and we're doing this as an organization, as MUFON, as ufologists, all of us who are interested in this, I believe what we need to do is to get our regular scientists who aren't part of the, working on some black project somewhere or are not part of the inside group, and get them working on this problem. I mean, once they realize that this is real, that these craft exist, that they display this kind of extraordinary technology, it won't take us that long if we can focus the resources and the money that's out there in the research community from corporations, from universities, from private think tanks to solve this problem ourselves. So I think we just need to, once something's discovered, take the power of flight, right? I mean, once it's discovered once, all of a sudden everybody's doing it, right? So once it's been discovered, which seems to me it already has somewhere, it's known, that it shouldn't take us that long to figure it out a second time. So I'd like to, for myself and for MUFON, use that as the focus, is rather than try to get inside the intelligence community and root around and try to figure out what's going on. Heck, let's forget that. Let's just go directly to solving it ourselves and putting this technology to peaceful use on this planet for the betterment of all of mankind, not just a few.
Well, that assumes, of course, there is technology that we can acquire, that technology is something that we can get a hold of, or that if there is ET, they are even at all interested in letting anyone in on what they do and how they do it. Maybe they have their own prime directive, which is mostly look but do not touch, but then we have the abductions. We don't know about those. Jan Harzan from MUFON joining us with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Neighbors, are you tired of dealing with a slow web hosting provider? Well, check out A2 Hosting and their screaming fast Swift server platform. They even have SSDs that load pages 300% faster than the competition. Ready to give your site a speed boost? Well, tell you what, neighbors, head on over to a2hosting.com. That's A2, that's number 2, a2hosting.com. Check out their Prime hosting account. And get this, neighbors, they're even giving you an exclusive 25% off discount for all our listeners. 25%. And remember, their Guru Crew support team is standing by 24/7, 365 days a year to answer any of your questions. Now, to get the discount, use the coupon code GENE when you check out.
Friends, this is Alex Jones for MidasResources.com. For more than 15 years, I have exclusively used Midas Resources for all my precious metal needs. Whether it's bullion or collectibles you're looking for, Midas Resources is simply the best. I own my gold as a hedge against inflation. This Federal Reserve fiat currency could go the way of the Deutschmark and the Weimar Republic anytime. In these historically dangerous times, it makes sense to physically hold gold and silver. Midas already has some of the best deals in the industry. But if you give them a call and mention the radio special, they will give you a list of the day's super specials. Midas brokers are standing by to answer all your questions at 800-686-2237. They also have a lot of informative free literature explaining the opportunities and risk of holding precious metals. They are ready to answer your questions at 800-686-2237. Again, that's 800-686-2237.
There is only one detox product that stands out above the rest. Micro Plant Powder. And it's available only at hempusa.org. Micro Plant Powder does wonders by removing toxins from the body. Detoxification is a vital process that's extremely important for restoring your health. Micro Plant Powder is available in 8 different formulations, and we can help you choose the one that's perfect for your lifestyle. Micro Plant Powder is 100% chemical-free, non-GMO, anti-inflammatory, gluten-free, and packaged by hand in BPA-free containers. HempUSA.org wants you to be healthy, and Micro Plant Powder is one of the best ways we know to detoxify your body from head to toe, all for about $10 a month. Take back your life and enjoy living again with Micro Plant Powder. Call 888-910-4367. That's 888-910-4367. Micro Plant Powder. Available only at hempusa.org.
Utopia Silver understands that mainstream medicine and the rising cost of healthcare can financially destroy any family. We simply cannot afford to get sick. The only option is to stay healthy. Americans are learning that ill health is not caused by a deficiency of drugs. It's usually the result of a deficiency of minerals, vitamins, proper nutrition, and exercise. UtopiaSilver.com offers colloidal silver and healing protocols for vaccine and radiation poisoning, arthritis, insomnia, and more. If you're sick of unconstitutional government mandates, then stand up now and say no. The time is growing short to put this evil genie back in its bottle. Join Utopia Silver in promoting good health and fighting for our God-given health care rights. Visit utopiasilver.com, UTOPIA silver.com, or call 888-213-4338. That's 888-213-4338.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
As you see, we have a lot of questions from our listeners about MUFON, questioning how the organization is working, about some of the questions about what the organization has done in the past coming up. With Gene and Chris, we have Jan Harzan answering those questions. Jan, let me ask you one quick one here, and that is regarding, of course, the association briefly with Mr. Bigelow, which didn't work out so well. Is that something you'd seek in the future? And I say didn't work out so well because he's the kind of person who likes all the information going his way but not in the other direction.
Yeah. So before I answer that, I wanted to go back to the previous question if I could, because this is an important point. Being an alumni of UCLA, I had the opportunity to attend a presentation by Ben Rich from the Lockheed Skunk Works. I had the good fortune to invite Tom Keller to attend with me, and this was back in 93. I believe it was March 23rd, 1993.
Yeah, and this is a famous statement that he made, and you were there and heard it.
Exactly. It's firsthand by two of us, not just one, but two. So he did a whole presentation of his 40 years at the Lockheed Skunk Works because he started as a young engineer. He actually was a protege of Kelly Johnson, who was the then CEO, the original CEO of the Lockheed Skunk Works, and he was given Ben was given the opportunity to be the project manager over the SR-71. That was his baby that turned out to be so darn successful, and the things are still flying today. I mean, this was built like 40, 50 years ago. he took over and worked there and then retired, and he was also an alumni of the UCLA School of Engineering, and he agreed to come speak to the alumni, the engineering alumni, and there were about 200 of us there at this night. He did a beautiful, I'd say 40-slide set on the different, it was slideshow on his years at the Skunk Works, including starting with the U-2 spy plane up through the SR-71, all the way up to the F-117. And when he finished his talk, his last slide was a black disc zipping off into outer space. It had little swoosh marks where you could see it flying off into outer space. And he ended the talk by saying, this is a quote, "We now have the technology to take E.T. home." Well, the entire place broke out laughing. And Tom and I just looked at each other and said, did he just say what we think he said? And we were just completely blown away. Well, there was a little polite Q&A afterwards, and then people got up to leave, and then about 20 or 30 of us went down to stand around him and talk with him some more. And during that, he shared some very fascinating things. He mentioned about the fact that we had figured out the technology to travel to the stars and that it wouldn't take our lifetime to get there. He mentioned that there was an error in the equations, and we now had the technology to take ET home. So he wouldn't tell us what the equations were, but if you know anything about stealth technology was all developed from a Russian mathematician's equations that the Lockheed Skunk Works, one of their engineers there, picked up and started working with, and realized that if you built a plane with certain angles to it, that it would be invisible to radar. And that's why the F-117 looks so strange. It's kind of a triangle. It's kind of a weird-looking plane. But that was all based on Russian mathematics. Well, there's no such thing as Russian mathematics, but it was mathematics from a Russian mathematician that was adapted. Well, obviously, there's other equations that talk about how you travel from here to there, and these have been figured out, and there was an error in them, and the error was corrected, and now in the black world, because that's basically what Lockheed Skunk Works does. It built things for the CIA and the NSA and anybody else, but it's all top secret, have discovered it. So going back to the previous question, which was, how do we, if you had all the money in the world, how would you do this? Well, I think what we do is we point people towards those things. The last statement that Ben Rich made was, as he was turning to walk away, I followed him out of the room, or to the end of the room, and said, "Mr. Rich, I have one last question for you." And he looked around at me like, "Who are you?" And I said to him, I have a real interest in this whole subject of propulsion and how it all works. And I said, "Can you tell me what the equations are? Can you tell me how it works?" And he just looked at me again up and down like, "Who are you and why are you asking this question?" And he said, "Well, let me ask you a question. How does ESP work?" And I was like stunned. I mean, I took two steps back because I wasn't expecting a question to my question. But I snapped back. Just first thing that came to my mind, I shot back, "I don't know. All points in space and time are connected?" And he looked at me and he said, "That's how it works." And he turned around and he walked away.
Wow.
Now, so here you've got two clues. Well, three clues. One is we've already done it, so we know it's doable. Two, there's an error in the equations, so we just need to figure out what the equations are and what the error is. And three, that however it works is the same way ESP works. So there's been a ton of research done by the Stanford Research Institute and other folks, Paul Putoff and a number of folks, about that whole thing, about remote viewing and how that all comes about. So we've got these clues here. We just need to get people working on it who have good scientific backgrounds. It's kind of like when you lose your keys and you look, on the kitchen counter and you don't see them and you walk in the room and you ask your spouse, "Have you seen my keys?" "Oh, yeah, they're on the kitchen counter." You go back and all of a sudden, "Oh, they're there." I mean, they were sitting there all the time, but you didn't see them the first time you looked, but they're there. That's kind of like this, is that if you know that it exists and you know that it's there, then all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier to solve. So I just want to make that point, is that this is all solvable, it's all doable, and we don't need the government or the intelligence community to come clean. That'd be great if they did. I don't think it'll ever happen, but if they did, that'd be wonderful. But we can do this all within our own resources and our own time.
Now, I had a question on the table, though, which was about Bob Bigelow and the issues regarding his participation.
Yes, let's talk about Bob Bigelow. So tell me specifically what you want to know, and I'll tell you whatever you need to know.
Okay, specifically here, when he was working with MUFON, I guess there was some question over the funds that were applied for research and whether the projects could be finished fast enough or not. And the other question is the issue or the concern about the fact that Bigelow seems to have this reputation that all the information comes to him rather than the other way around.
Okay, so here was the opportunity that presented itself. Bob had a contract. Now, we never knew who exactly the contract was with, but my belief is it was a private individual who has had a great interest in the subject. And the question was put to us, if you had, all the money you needed, could you do a better job of getting to, UFO reports, getting to a site and collecting the data, and would that improve your ability to have usable, information? And so we thought about that, and we said, well, absolutely. I mean, our mission is a scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity. Our first goal is to investigate UFO sightings. So if we had, we're a completely volunteer organization other than the executive director and an office manager. I mean, and I think we obviously have a contract person who does our journal. But beyond that, I mean, it's all volunteers. I mean, there's thousands of volunteers. Well, if you now have money to, let's say a report comes in, to have a team of people who can triage those reports, we call them CMS administrators and case managers, and they could quickly jump on a case and assign an investigator, which we deemed a STAR team investigators. These are basically our folks who have got a lot of years of experience as FIs, and get them out to the site within 24 hours, whether it requires a plane ticket, a bus ride, whatever it takes to get them there, and fund them to stay on site, in a hotel, feed them, house them, give them the supplies they need to do the report. Could you get better data? I mean, that was the whole crux behind what was being asked of us by Mr. Bigelow.
Let's continue that in our next segment. We have Jan Harzan joining Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
It's hurricane and wildfire season again. Why do thousands of people sit in these reoccurring problem areas year after year, betting their lives that the disaster won't get them? Hundreds of you helped eFoods Direct ship 50,000 donated meals to the Oklahoma victims. The problem is we can't help everybody. If every one of us who can will take care of ourselves, we can all pitch in to take care of those who really can't. The new just-in-case pack from eFoods Direct is the big brother to the 7-day emergency pack designed for Oklahoma disaster donations. It contains a 2-month supply for one person, or a 1-month supply for 2 adults, or a 2-week supply for a family of 4. The $320 price is $50 less than retail. Call 800-409-5633 on the web efoodsdirect.com/Alex. Order 2 or more, get 10% off, free shipping applies. Call 800-409-5633 on the web efoodsdirect.com/Alex.
An e-cig revolution is sweeping across the country. But is yours American-made? Vaporite e-liquid by LeSig is. Manufactured in Arkansas with 100% USA-sourced ingredients. And when you buy American, you support local jobs. Vaporite e-liquid by LeSig is top quality at an affordable price. The very principle that once drove the American economy. Get great taste with no ash, tar, or smoke. You'll be wondering why you didn't make the change to Vaporite e-liquid by LeSig a long time ago. LeSig.com has everything you need, for beginners to the advanced vaping enthusiast, with a wide variety of hardware, and also imported e-liquid flavors as well. Plus, LeSig smokes the competition with fast, free, same-day shipping, real people customer service, and a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Support our country and become a Vaporite at LeSig.com. or call 870-525-1440. 870-525-1440. LeSig e-cigarettes for today's modern smoker.
These days, so many suffer from heartburn, stomach ulcers, and acid reflux, and most never realize it is the high acidity within the body that causes their discomfort. While selective diet choices can help, AlkaVision Plasma pH drops can really make a change. A few drops added to water can optimize your body's pH level, ridding you of harmful waste and acid, promoting health and restoring vibrance and energy. Healthy pH levels make all the difference. High acidity can also cause depression, insomnia, and irritability. AlkaVision Plasma pH drops bring you vital balance that can be truly life-changing. Alkalizing boosts immune response, reduces headaches and cramping, and even helps prevent bone loss. This is simple science that helps your body do what's natural. Order your AlkaVision pH drops for just $29.95 at alkavision.com, ALKAvision.com, or call 800-518-7615. Alkalize your body. Supercharge your health at alkavision.com.
Hi, this is nuclear physicist lecturer Stanton Friedman. You are listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Jan Harzan of MUFON telling Gene and Chris about their participation working with Mr. Bob Bigelow. So go ahead, please.
So we looked at that, and we said, sure, absolutely. Today one of our biggest problems is because it's all volunteer and people are left to their own resources, that if you need to fly someone someplace, they're paying out of their own pocket, and a lot of people don't have the money to do that. Similarly, if you're going to want to be on site for several days, which some of these cases require, you're going to have the resources to have a hotel room, to have meals, to maybe have a rental car if you had to fly someplace where you didn't have a car. So we said, absolutely. We think we could design a program where we could make this happen and test it out and see how it works. So they said, great, we're going to give you X dollars per month, and to pay for this program, we'd like a manager in place of it. So we named a STAR team manager. Today that gentleman is Fletcher Gray. Fletcher is not paid. He's not paid, but the one that was there was being paid quite a bit of money, frankly. We had basically operators standing by 24/7 who were MUFON people, CMS administrator type people who were scanning CMS minute by minute as cases came in, and immediately phoning back the witnesses to categorize the sightings into either category 1, 2, or 3. Just to give you a quick synopsis, a category 1 sighting is basically a light in the sky. Category 2 sighting, in short, is something that has a physical effect. So your car stopped, it left a burn mark on the ground, it broke a branch of a tree when it flew away, something that you could see, touch, and feel, some physical effect. And a category 3 was a sighting, a close encounter where an entity was observed or interacted with. Well, the vast majority of our reports coming to MUFON are category 1. They're lights in the sky type of thing. So that's probably 70-75% of what we get, perhaps even as high as 80%. We get a few of the category 2s and then very, very few of the category 3s, but we do get them. So the STAR team were only deployed on category 2 or category 3 sighting reports. And so we would triage those reports, we would review them, and then decide where the deployment should be made, and then the funds were expended. So we had to account for the funds that were given to us because the whole point of the thing was to pay for the project. It wasn't to pay for MUFON, and that was one of the sticking points. We felt that some of that money should have gone for the overall administrative overhead of MUFON because we did have to run CMS, we had to keep an office open, we had to do all that stuff. But be that as it may, it did fund a good project for, I'm thinking 6 to 10 months. I'm not sure exactly how long it ran. But then the project ended. So we took what we learned from that, and we've implemented it within MUFON today. We still have CMS administrators. We still have a STAR team manager. We still have STAR team members. What we don't have is the funding to drop people in. So the funding is all through volunteer donations to be able to fly people to a good category sighting, to be able to put them up and do stuff like that. So we depend a lot, as we always have, on volunteers to make that happen. But that was the full extent of the program. There was never any oversight by Bigelow. Really wasn't involved in it. It was BASS, his subsidiary, Bigelow Advanced Aerospace Studies, run by Colm Kelleher, and they had a team of people that were working on it. And the whole purpose of that organization was to bring scientists on to look at the whole UFO problem. So what they were looking for was feeding these people with information that they could then work on later. So after we investigated the sighting report, we would turn the information over to them, and if they wanted to go out on site and investigate it, they were welcome to do so.
Let me ask you a quick question here because we have to move on. We're getting near the end of this. Was there any request on the part of Bigelow or his people for you not to disclose the information you gave to them?
Never.
Okay.
Never.
Chris?
There were rumblings at the time when the whole thing kind of fell apart that perhaps Bigelow had been cherry-picking cases and leaving MUFON out of the loop. Did that happen?
Never. No, because we got the cases first, and then we would review them on a weekly basis, I believe, with Bigelow. It might have been a daily basis, but it was not with, when we say Bigelow, we didn't do it with him. He had a Colm Kelleher, who you know from NIDS, had been hired back by him to run BASS, and they had a staff of people, I don't recall the names right now, who would be on the phone with our STAR team manager almost daily, going through the cases from the day before and reviewing them. So, no, there's no case of them.
Well, the fact that the Bigelow Aerospace is now the number that UFO reports into the FAA, they're given the Bigelow Aerospace number for them to report their sighting. I would think that it would make sense for them to be going to you. Did you ever enter in any conversations with Bigelow about being part of that particular process of fielding reports to the FAA?
Yeah, actually, I talked to Colm Kelleher about that when that came out in a news release a few years back, and there really is no agreement with the FAA. What happened was they just basically called them up and gave them their number, and so we've done the same thing. We, with local police departments, fire departments, FAA, and different places where reports come in, we basically provide our information and our contact saying, if you get these kind of reports, and you can refer them to us because that's what we do. And they actually do appreciate that because they don't really have the wherewithal to collect UFO reports. I mean, the police department is there to stop crimes, and if they're not, jaywalking or speeding down the street in their UFO, there's really nothing for them to do. Same thing with the FAA. They're really trying to manage the traffic patterns of the airliners in the world, and they're not there to be a UFO collection agency. So they appreciate that. So I think that one kind of got a lot more press than it really should have. It's a very simple thing. They just basically gave them their name and number, and I think they may have put out somebody put out a press release saying that they were the place to go to. But the truth is, the FAA can report to anybody they want.
Right. Okay, so there is no official thing. It's just an easier path of resistance, least resistance to the FAA to have somebody else take the call, basically.
Right, exactly.
Well, one thing that I want to get in here before we get too far down the road, because we are getting toward the end of the show, and that is to acknowledge you, Jan, and Orange County MUFON for being excited about the vision that Wayne Hollenbeck and myself had for the San Luis Valley Camera Project, and for actually helping us with some seed money to get the project up and get some gear bought. And I'm happy to report that we're about ready to put a second and third camera up, and we couldn't have done it without you, Jan. And that's the kind of hard data research that I think MUFON could excel at. And now that we've gotten kind of the stickier stuff out of the way, here's a fun one for you. What do you think is the strongest or best UFO case that you know about? And this is another question from our poster, Han.
All time or just?
Well, what's your personal favorite? Which one really set your wheels turning?
Well, honestly, the one that set my wheels turning was the Travis Walton case. I mean, here's a guy with 7 of his worker friends or buddies see this. What they thought was a forest fire off in the distance and drove over to see it. It turned out to be a craft. For whatever reason, he jumped out of the truck and ran towards it, got hit by a beam and knocked unconscious. His buddies ran away and came back 5 days later. He shows back up, none the worse for wear, and it is a phenomenal story about being on board this craft and what happened to him. I'm just blown away by it. And he's passed lie detector tests and everything else. And boy, if you can't be a believer after hearing that story, I don't know what would make you a believer in this subject.
Well, especially when you meet Travis and speak with him.
Yeah,
I mean,
such
he's
a
been
nice
rock
guy.
solid for all these
Absolutely.
40 years.
We have to loosen that guy up and have him come on the Paracast soon. I know you and I have talked to him several times. And he says, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. It's not like Whitley Strieber, who doesn't want to come on the Paracast and will probably never come on the Paracast. Travis would get an interesting reception here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. His story is one of the best, and I agree, Jan. That is a very, very intriguing case, especially if you look at some of the stuff that was going on in the area, which, incidentally, is just down the Mogollon Rim from where I live. I'm about 40, 50 miles away from there. There were a lot of very interesting events that went on in the fall of 75 and 76 in the area. I think the attendant phenomenon aspect of ufology is one that needs to be reconciled, I think, by groups like MUFON. When your investigators go out and investigate a really good sighting, and then they find out that there's cattle mutilations, Bigfoot reports, strange appearing crypto creatures, and that sort of thing, I think that all this should kind of come into play. I think there is some sort of interconnectedness. And speaking of that, L.A. MUFON has all of a sudden jumped ship, and they want to become more of a paranormal group now. Can you give us a little insight on that?
Before you do, we have to do the break. With Gene and Chris talking to Jan Harzan, you're in
the Paracast.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
If you want to get your website online and you need reliable service, first-class service at the lowest possible price, there's only one place to go. Well, DreamHost has a special promotion with our show where they'll offer you unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click web apps such as WordPress, 24/7 support. You can save over $55. You want to know how? Go to dreamhost.com/radio, dreamhost.com/radio.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
Attention homeschoolers, teachers, and students of all ages, now there's a way to learn English grammar using the Holy Bible. Sacred Grammar is a unique book that teaches all of the fundamentals of English grammar using Bible verses. Affordable and simple to use, it's a superb supplement and a great teacher's aid. Whether your focus is teaching children at home, strengthening your own writing skills, or just speaking proper English, Sacred Grammar offers all the tools you'll ever need. Learn to use words through His Word. For more information, go to sacredgrammar.com. That's sacredgrammar.com.
In times of disaster, internet and mobile networks will go dark. A wealth of online information will be completely inaccessible. Now, imagine the most extensive survival and disaster preparedness library ever created, with information for every possible scenario, still available to you without online access. That's the survival key. Ben Franklin said it best. By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. Get your survival key at getsurvivalkey.com. Quite literally, the key to your survival. Getsurvivalkey.com.
Hi there. My name is Frank Bates. What I'm about to tell you in the next 60 seconds could get me in a lot of trouble. I just created a free video presentation at 123coverup.com that exposes the electricity monopolies and government agencies for what they really are. Incompetent, lying crooks that are counting on your ignorance and fear to keep your power bills criminally high. Some have called this a conspiracy. Others have called it a cover-up, and you will be shocked to find out how deep the conspiracy goes. My video at 123coverup.com exposes the truth and shows you the secret of how I beat them and how you can beat them too. Watch the controversial video that thousands of other smart patriots have already seen in the last 3 months. Go to 123coverup.com and discover one weird trick to slash your power bill and protect your home. Go watch my video now at 123coverup.com before they force me to shut it down. Again, that's 123coverup.com.
Hi, my name is Scott Fuchs, teacher and rowing coach for over 14 years. I was sluggish, overweight, on prescription drugs, and only 30-something. Fortunately, I was referred to Dr. Z, and happy to say Dr. Z's all-natural protocols over a consistent course resolved my health issues. I'm in the best shape of my life, and most importantly, on 0 medications.
I'm Dr. Stanowski, author of Evology, trained as a primary care physician, surgical manipulation under anesthesia, Expert in nutrition, diet, weight loss, immune system, and I specialize in chiropractic. My 15 years of professional experience has taught me the 4 keys to vibrant health: a balanced musculoskeletal system, an integrated nervous system, a flowing lymphatic system, and a body filled with over 90 essential nutrients. This has been a secret too long. Actualize your potential, reverse disease. Call me, Dr. Z. 201-945-1177, 201-945-1177, evolveyourself.com.
This is Jacques Vallée. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
Jan Harzan's the new director of MUFON. And he sounds like a keeper. You know, I'm maybe not agree with everything he says, but he's really a solid guy there. And glad to meet you, Jan. We're going to continue with our final segment of the Paracast. Chris asked kind of a big question that requires a much longer answer than we can spend here, but Jan will try to be brief.
Absolutely. So I think the whole, and this is a real dialogue going on within MUFON and at the board level all the way down today, and that is, you know, where does MUFON stand with regard to the paranormal? And obviously, you know, paranormal just means it's something out of the ordinary. UFOs definitely could have that label attached to them as being paranormal. But, you know, we're planning to focus on UFOs. I mean, that's what we really want to focus on. Now, if as part of a UFO study there's a Bigfoot associated with it, and there have been sightings where a craft has been seen and a Bigfoot has been seen in the same vicinity, that's fine. We have no problem with that. I've had cases I have personally investigated, one by a police officer, which was an angel case, you know, where he was riding his bike down a place, and all of a sudden reality changed around him, and there was an angel talking to him, you know. So it's not like we spurn those types of reports if people want to report it to us. But our primary focus really is on UFOs and craft and potential entities or beings that might be associated with that. So that is what we'd like, that's what we are doing in terms of collecting data. That doesn't mean there's another data in our files on ghosts or anything else, but that's not our primary focus.
Do you consider, though, that there's a possibility that maybe there's a relationship amongst all these things? So you have UFOs, and then there's Bigfoot and other phenomena around it. Maybe there is a connection that ought to be explored?
Well, I think, I don't know, but I mean, I think there is a connection. The connection in my mind is probably something along the lines of this interdimensional type aspect, which means that we probably don't live in a 3- or 4-dimensional universe, which is what we experience daily. If you read Michio Kaku's book, you know, The 10-Dimensional Universe, or I believe that's the title of his book, but he's got written many, many books on the subject of this. He talks about the fact that, you know, the universe is made up of at least 10 dimensions. And as you get into the higher dimensions, the stranger it looks to us. So the book that was written years ago, Flatland, where it was talking about beings who lived in a 2-dimensional world, what a 3-dimensional world might look to them like. And if you pass a cone through a flat surface, which is the 2-dimensional world, what they'd see is first is a dot, and then you see the dot get bigger into a circle, and the circle get larger and larger and larger until finally it just disappeared. It would look very, very strange to them because they're flatlanders. Very similar to us. If we're in a 3-dimensional world, and all of a sudden a 4th-dimensional being or a 5th-dimensional being or craft moves through our 3 dimensions, 3rd dimension, it's going to look very, very strange to us. It's going to do strange things, and that's exactly what these craft exhibit is, very, very strange things. Similarly, I mean, it's possible that these creatures, Bigfoot or whatever, might be higher dimensional beings that come in and out of our reality. I really don't know. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, we're not a Bigfoot research organization. There are Bigfoot research organizations, and we're certainly happy to work with them if we need to, or ghost people who do ghost studies and things like that. But it seems to me that it's probably all using the same physics of some kind of higher dimensionality. And someday we'll understand it, and it'll all make perfect sense to us. But right now, it's just pretty strange, which is why we call it paranormal.
Okay, so MUFON has been around since, what, the late 1960s?
Yes, 69.
Okay, right. And so have I, but I don't want to get into that because nobody is as old as I am. Okay. Do you think you've made much progress? Do you think we've gone anywhere in the UFO field? It seems that we're talking about the same things now that we talked about in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, etc.
Well, I think where we've made progress is, number one, we have a structure and we have a process. Back in the 60s and 70s, although we had sighting reports and things like that, they were going into brown paper boxes and going into Walt's garage and being stacked up. They weren't accessible. Today, information is going into the computer. It's in a relational database. It's all accessible. It can be studied. Where we really need to move this to is taking the data and doing analytics on it and trying to understand what the data is telling us. We also need to take what we know to be true from the comments of Ben Rich and others and get scientists, real scientists, I'd say real scientists, basically people who have an interest in physics and these things and get them working on it, trying to figure out, how it all works and make it available to all of us so it can improve our lives and improve life on this planet for everybody. I think there's great progress going to be made here in the next 10 to 20 years that we've never seen before. Here's one as an example. With all of these space companies out there today, very shortly, in the next 10 years, we're going to have civilians walking on the moon. Maybe 20 years. It might be 20 years. But at least in space orbit, right? You've got all these companies that are building craft to take you up and give you the ride of your life or the vacation of your life in orbit or even on the surface of the moon or Mars. Well, if there are truly structures on these planets and bodies like the moon, I would think you might see them if you were up there taking your vacation. It would be very hard for someone to say this doesn't exist. I'm not saying that it does exist. I'm just saying, now it won't be us depending on the government or our satellite programs to tell us what's there and the imagery from it. Look at all the controversy over the face on Mars.
All right. Okay, so stay with me now. Let's bear this in mind. So we don't expect that maybe we'll be vindicating someone like a Richard Hoagland as a result of this, but at least more and more people will have a chance to see this, and there won't be the wall of security behind the military travels. If civilians go there, they can't stop what's being reported.
Well, I'm just thinking it'll put a lot of this to bed. It'll either be true or it won't be true. It's either there or it's not there. But we'll be able to experience it firsthand as opposed to have someone telling us about it. That's my whole point. And I think that's where you're talking about we haven't progressed very far. Well, maybe we haven't progressed very far in terms of figuring out what exactly these UFOs are and how they work. But we're a lot closer today than we were 40, 50 years ago.
In what respect? And we only have 2 minutes left, so this is going to have to be the fastest answer of the ages for you.
Well, in the respect that we know that there's people who are in the know who've told us that it exists and that, kind of how, in essence, and how it works. And now it's just really up to us to put that to work and make it happen. I'm very positive that we're going to make great strides here in the next 10 to 15 years.
Well, if we're all around 10 or 15 years from now, we can all get together in a little room and we can talk about it and see what solutions we come up with. Very fascinating. We have a minute or two left. Would you, Jan Harzan, tell our listeners who haven't considered becoming a member of MUFON, and I am a card-carrying member of MUFON, by the way,
well,
just to let you know that. Right, he's sending me a bill. Tell our listeners more about it.
Absolutely. Well, MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, was founded in May of 1969, and our whole mission and purpose has been the scientific study of the UFO phenomenon. So if this is something that interests you, I would encourage you to come join MUFON. Memberships are as little as $35 a year. If you're a senior, I think they're $30. To be a subscriber of our electronic journal, which is published every month, we put in it all the latest sighting reports and things that have been vetted, along with a number of different feature articles on the UFO field. If you can even support more, you can certainly become a donor and work at higher levels. We have a benefactor level, which is $1,500, which allows you to be a lifetime member. But all of this goes towards funding the operation and helping us maintain our website and our case management system, which is what all the sighting reporting goes through, helps us build research projects that we can hopefully get answers to some of these questions we've been talking about today on the show. So I would strongly encourage you to go to MUFON.com and join today. And I'd be happy to talk to you or answer any questions you have. But we need all the support. It's really the public that makes this happen, and we appreciate each and every one of you who are members today and each and every one of you who will become a member very soon.
MUFON.com. We'll have a link over at theparacast.com for it. Chris O'Brien's great site is OurStrangePlanet.com. That's OurStrangePlanet.com. And, of course, you can find us on Twitter, where we are known as The Paracast. We are The Paracast on Twitter. And there are 2 Paracast fan clubs on Facebook. Someday we'll figure out how to make them one. So there you go. Jan Harzan, Director of MUFON, thank you so much for joining us this week on The Paracast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible, Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in The Paracast.